Has been called back to order. Ms. Georgia?
Mr. Reese.
Here.
Ms. Broussard. Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ambrose.
Here.
Ms. Bush.
Here.
Mr. Mike Neal.
Here.
Mr. Tom Neal.
Here. It appears that a quorum has been established. Our pledges will be led by Dr. Shirley Bunton, Deputy Superintendent for Financial Services and Elementary Administration. Invocation will be led by Mr. Philip Brooks, Assistant Superintendent for Administration and Operations. Would you please stand?
Thank you. Would you bow your heads, please? Father God, we come to you tonight, and we thank you for the day that you've given us. We especially thank you for the rain that you gave to us. And Father, we thank you for tonight and all the folks that have come tonight to support our district. I ask you to be with each one of us as we're in this room together. I especially pray for our superintendent, Dr. Shagwar, our board president, Mr. Reese, our board secretary, Mr. Williams, members, Ms. Ambrose, Ms. Bush, Mr. Neal, and Mr. Neal, as they come together, planning, thinking, strategizing on what's best for our district. Father, be with us tonight and keep us safe whenever we go home tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
You may be seated. Is there a motion?
President Reese, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting July 26th, the special board meeting of July 29th, and the special board meeting of August the 1st, all of 2013.
Second. It's been motioned by Ms. Bush and second by Mr. Williams that we consider improve the minutes of A, B, and C. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, raise your right hand if you approve. Unanimous. At this time, we'll turn the meeting over to our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Shagwar.
All right, thank you, President Reese, Board of Trustees, patrons. It's always good to know that people are interested in our school district. I will be very brief about the proposed budget. As you know, we've had to do a 10-day notice, and we will actually adopt a tax rate should we choose to adopt that on next Thursday, the 22nd. And we'll do more and talk more about the proposed budget. The numbers have not changed. We're still planning on bringing to you Plan 2, which will require some of those adjustments that we've talked about in the past. The bond update. As you know, we've completed 54 of the 54 projects. We do have a certificate of occupancy for the auditorium at Westbrook, and we're in the process of getting everything together so that we can call the CABC, the Community Advisory Bond Committee, so that we can participate in the final closing, and so be expecting information as it relates to that. We've had lots of updates from parking lots to roofs and so on and so forth. One thing that you all may know that's happening, and not just in our school district, but it's happening around the city, we're having people a rash of copper being stolen out of air conditioners. And of course, it's had a major impact on our schools, and we're in the process of trying to make sure we can get those schools up and ready. Because as you know, convocation will be here on Monday, and teachers expect to be able to go to a fairly cool building. I did talk with Chief Duncan and Mr. Brooks about how we would attack that situation, and we do believe we're going to have some support with even the Beaumont Police Department, where we should see more patrolling in our communities, not just at our schools, but also our churches and many other places that have been hit with this rash. So we are now in the process of trying to make sure all of our buildings are up and ready and running so that the first day of school, August 26th, that we'll be prepared for that. So we are excited, our students are excited, and I think that the hard work and effort that you put into passing a bond a few years back has paid off and is paying off. I'm also in the process of preparing to do an audit of the bond. Of course, we will not have the time nor the manpower nor the money to audit every single one of those projects. But what I have been doing, I have met with our auditor, and I'm looking at doing a major project out of Package A, and we'll do something out of Package B, Package C. For sure, we'll probably audit the Thomas Center, probably out of one of those packages. I'm not sure where South Park was in there. Don't hold me to those, but the idea is that we want to get something out of each one of those packages to make sure and to really clarify that those monies were spent right. As you know, with the bond, Ms. Ambrose, and you served on the CABC, thanks to you and your committee and your vision and your foresight, of course, previous administration, you built more stuff than you thought you were going to be able to do. So in actuality, you did a great job with that, and we do appreciate that. So I know our students and staff are pretty excited about coming back. What I'm going to do at this time is let Dr. Augustine spend some quality time with us explaining about our new accountability system. He may touch a little bit on House Bill 5. As you know, our ratings have come out, and how have our schools performed. Because you know what? The power of our purpose, it's about students. And I'm taking my time in saying that because I want to make sure people in the audience remember that is what this school district is about. It is about students. It is about 100% graduation. It's about kids graduating, being able to go on to college, compete in the workforce, accept an assignment in the military, work in the ministry, whatever they so choose to do. And I want you to know, and I know our staff are excited as we plan for convocation about the incentive pay, for you to acknowledge the fact that we're at about 94% graduation rate, our completion rate, and to show that you appreciate our hard work, appreciate the staff's hard work is definitely important to them. But that's what this is about. And we've had a lot of changes, believe it or not, outside of all the other things that have gone on in the district that's happened with accountability. And so I want to make sure that we get refocused, because this is the month before, or the actually board meeting before we go back to work, when we bring the whole field or flock of teachers and students and everybody back. So there are a lot of changes. Dr. Augustine.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shagwar. First, let me say good evening to the board and members of the public who are here tonight. You may recall that we actually started this accountability process looking at our data back in June. We looked at some of the detailed data, campus by campus and grade level by grade level. What we're doing this evening is taking those final accountability ratings and sort of summarizing those stemming from that detailed data we looked at in June. And so that's where we are now. What I have for you here is a chart, obviously, and several slides. I just kind of broke our elementary schools into two different groups. I'll give the middle schools after that, and then the high schools, along with the district, the Region 5, and the state scores. As you all know, our accountability system changed quite a bit, and essentially what we have now is a system with 4 indexes. Can everyone hear me okay on this mic? We have 4 indexes, and each index measures something a little bit different and not only that, but takes a different set of students, a different set of group of students to look at. And so let me go through those first. Index 1, for example, deals with student achievement. It's called student achievement. And what that index looks at is all students and all tests, and that's it. Index 1 does not look at different student groups, does not look at students by racial, ethnic groups, or special ed, or ELL kids, English language learners. It's just simply all students, all tests. And, you know, one of the interesting things when you go back and look at it, our district gave almost 42,000 tests last year. And when I started looking at that, it's just a phenomenal number when you think about it. And so there's a formula for each of the indexes, and then TA assigns a score for that index. But index 1, student achievement, all students, all tests. And as you can see, those are our schools: Amelia, Blanchette, Caldwood, Charlton, Pollock, Curtis, Dishman, and Phil Price. And you can see those index scores for index 1. Obviously, we have some things to celebrate in some of our scores, and then we have some work to do in others. At the very top of it, the 50 and the 25 represent the target scores that must be met for that index. And so as you can see, all of our campuses listed there met the target for index 1. We have no schools that got a score under 50 for index 1. The 25 represents the alternative campuses, which we only have one that's going to be rated, and you'll see that when we get to the high schools. Paul Brown is our only alternative school that was rated in this accountability system. So when you see that second number there in index 1, 3, and 4, that number represents the target for Paul Brown. But for every other campus for index 1, the target score was 50. Any questions about index 1? I think I'll take these one by one because they are a little complicated. And it's a paradigm shift from what we're used to looking at in the past. We had grown accustomed to saying, okay, 80 was acceptable. I'm sorry, 70 was acceptable. 80 was recognized. 90 was exemplary. Anything below 70 was academically unacceptable. And so now that we've shifted from strictly looking at numbers to looking at indexes and target scores instead of percentages, so to speak, for these indexes, it's just a total paradigm shift. So I'd rather just take those one by one and then give you an opportunity to ask questions about them. Okay, no questions about index 1? Index 2. Index 2 deals with progress. Index 2 now takes the different student groups that we had grown accustomed to looking at and measuring, all students, every racial and ethnic group. In fact, beginning this year, we've included, well, the state has included every racial ethnic group where your district met the minimum size requirement of 25. And essentially what progress is, grades 3 through 8, we have what's called a vertical scale. And so from year to year, a student is expected to grow or progress from year to year on that vertical scale. And so that's what index 2 represents. The target for index 2 varied depending on what type of campus it was. So for example, elementary, ES up there, elementary was 30, middle school 29, high schools had a target score of 17. Alternative schools like Brown, 9, and the district as a whole, the target score was 21. And so, as you can see, in Index 2, elementary schools, those are the only ones we're looking at, Index 2's target score was 30, and all of our elementary schools listed there met that requirement for Index 2 progress. Any questions about Index 2? Index 3. Index 3 is the index that looks at closing the gap. So the student groups are now narrowed every student group that gets evaluated in Index 3 is economically disadvantaged students. And after economically disadvantaged students, your next two lowest scoring student groups, racial ethnic groups, are then considered if you have enough students to meet that minimum size requirement of 25. So some campuses may only have two student groups economically disadvantaged and one other racial ethnic group. Some campuses may have economically disadvantaged students and two other ethnic racial groups evaluated. So that varied from campus to campus. But what did not vary is the target score again. 55 is the target score. And as you can see here, every elementary school except for Blanchette met the target. And so what that means is Blanchette, because Blanchette did not meet that target score of 55, has the label improvement needed. And so we know we're going to have to do some work on that campus, and we're going to have to address some issues in terms of accountability. We don't know exactly what the requirements are going to be from TEA. The commissioner is waiting on the U.S. Department of Education with AYP decisions and so forth, and I think after those are made, then we'll find out what school improvement requirements we'll need to do at Blanchette. In addition to Blanchette, you see Felt Price at the very bottom, index score of 52, and that obviously is below 55, and so we'll have some things to do at Felt Price as well. Any questions about Index 3?
Yeah, Dr. Augustine?
Yes, sir.
The 30, what does the 30 represent at the top?
The 30
55
again,
and 30.
the second number listed on those, that's the target score that an alternative campus has to meet. And for us, the only alternative campus we have that's evaluated under this accountability system is Paul Brown. And the scores are lower for alternative campuses because they do serve a population of students who, whether it's mobility or whether it's at risk, and that's why those numbers are lower for alternative campuses across the state. Index 4 is post-secondary readiness. Elementary schools and middle schools did not, for this year, get evaluated in Index 4, so you'll see the asterisks for those. The only campuses that got evaluated for Index 4 were high schools, and the only data that served as evaluating data for Index 4 was graduation rate, 4- and 5-year graduation rate, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the high schools. Any questions about Index 4? And I hadn't gone into much detail. There's not a whole lot of detail about Index 4 this year. Beyond this year, Index 4 will get a little more complicated. There'll be some more factors taken into consideration, things like graduation plans, how many of your students are graduating on the advanced plan, and things like that. And at the very end, I'll kind of sum up some of the House Bill 5 and other changes, and I'll talk a little bit about graduation plans at the very end of this. Now, in addition to those 4 indexes and those target scores, schools had an opportunity to earn distinctions. And the way distinctions work is, if I'm Amelia, there are 40 other campuses that TEA grouped me with in the state, and those 40 campuses represented similarities in enrollment, economically disadvantaged population, student mobility rate, and things like that. And so of those 40 campuses, I had to rank in the top quartile. And once I ranked in the top quartile, then our scores were compared. And then if I earned the top quartile after that, I was able to earn those distinctions as a campus. You can see that Sally Curtis did very well. That's definitely something to celebrate. They earned distinctions in every area. Charlton Pollard earned a distinction in reading. Amelia earned distinction in reading ELA. And you'll see when I switch the slide here, we had other campuses that also received distinctions. Any questions about the distinctions? Okay, second half of our elementary schools. Indexes again, index 1 again, target score 50. All of those campuses on this slide met that target. Index 2, again, elementary 30, and every campus on this slide met the target score. For index 2 and index 3, the target score was 55, and you can see that all of the campuses met that target score as well. Fletcher Elementary, just like Curtis on the previous slide, Fletcher earned distinctions in every area, and so that's definitely something to celebrate. Homer earned distinctions in every area. Roy Guess earned a distinction in reading, and then Jones Clark earned 2 of the 3 distinctions in reading and math. Moving on to our middle schools, the index indexes don't change. The scores for the index are the same except for index 2, and again index 1, the target score is 50, and all of our middle schools met that 50. Marshall at 88, Oldham at 78, and I'll just back up a bit to for our elementaries. You know, we had a pretty good range, and some did extremely well on these index scores. Just pointing out Curtis, Charlton Pollard, their index 1, index 3, just emphasizing Curtis. 32 there with Amelia, it's close to the target score, and so we know we'll be looking at on that campus the progress of those students. That way we can continue to focus on those students who are close to maybe not making progress there, so we don't fall behind a little bit and not make progress this upcoming year. So we'll be looking closely at this data, campus by campus, student by student, and focusing our curriculum. And I think Mrs. Lambert will talk about curriculum and instruction a little bit tonight as well. But again, back to our middle schools. Index 2 for middle schools was 29 was the target score, and you can see there that all of our middle schools met the target score of 29. Index 3, again, the target score there is 55, and all of our middle schools met that target score as well. Any questions so far? Let me just pause here for a minute, see if anybody have questions. Okay, moving on to distinctions. Marshall Middle School earned 3 of 3. Oldham earned 1 distinction in reading ELA, and South Park earned 2 of 3 in reading and math.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that South Park got a distinction in reading with a 69, but Vincent did not with a 70. Is it based on the score or the amount of improvement? How do we?
That's a good question. Distinctions. You have your basic accountability, which are the indices, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then outside of that, you can earn distinctions. Well, the way distinctions are done, you have what's called a comparison group, a campus comparison group, and that's that group of 40 campuses that I mentioned earlier that look mostly like you. The state prepares that group, and so what happens is you may, your target score may be lower, but within your comparison group, you win quartile 1 of that comparison group, and therefore you earn the distinction.
You have said that, and I just missed it. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's complicated. Moving on to our high schools. You can see there, index 1 again. Mr. Reese, you asked about the second score, the 25. Now we look at that alternative target score as well as the target score for regular campuses. And so Paul Brown, for example, their target score, or its target score, was 35, and the state requirement in terms of target score was 25. So you can see that they met that. Now, for every other campus, that target score was 50, and you can see that all of our high schools met the target score of 50 for Index 1. Index 2, student progress, Paul Brown was not evaluated on that index. as you know, students at Paul Brown accelerate, and in order to gauge progress, you have to have a prior year's test scores, because you are supposed to make progress from one year to the next. Well, because Paul Brown accelerates students, this last school year was their first year to really do end of course exams, and the year before the only scores they had were TAC scores, so those students did not have prior end of course scores to measure progress from, and so they were not evaluated on that index. Central had a target score of 20, and again the high school target base requirement from the state is 17. Ozan, you can see, had 16, so Ozan did not meet the target. Westbrook had a target score of 29, and again, just like Blanchard and Phil Price, Ozan will also have the label of improvement needed, and we'll have to do some school improvement activities, and we'll be doing quite a bit of work. Mr. Norris has already begun a lot of that. We've had several conversations already, including tonight, and so they'll be working real hard to raise those scores there.
Dr. Augustine?
Yes, sir.
So what moves that score or lowers that score of 16 at Ozan?
It's students advancing from year to year. With, again, in grades 3 through 8, the scale score is vertical, and so it's easy to measure students going up. And when you get to end of course exams, it's a horizontal scale, and so there's a formula that you use to calculate progress. And so essentially those students have to increase their scores from year to year, and that's what raises the progress score. So for example, we started looking in kind of detail what would it take, for example, for Central to go from a target score of 16 to 17. Well, when we looked at individual students, it was about 12 students to raise it a full point. About 7 students would get them to 16.6 or 16.7, which then would round up to 17. So you're looking anywhere from 7 to 12 students making more progress, and Ozan would have had a target score of 17. So index 3, closing the gap, the target there again was 55, and all of our campuses met that target. And post-secondary readiness, again, what that did for high schools, the way it was calculated is simply by 4- and 5-year graduation rates, and the state took whichever was higher, the 4-year rate or the 5-year rate. And you can see what those rates are, and those graduation rates lag a year behind. So this is accountability for 2013. So these would be calculations for the graduation rate for 2012, because that data lags. Distinctions: Westbrook earned 1 distinction in progress, which means that in Index 2, Westbrook ranked in quartile 1 for student progress, which is what Index 2 measures. And so that's our high school status. District-wise, actually Dr. Shagwa is in front of the state target score there. What I've done is just put the district sort of in line with district, region 5, and state, and you can see the comparisons for all the 4 indices there. Index 1, we were at 73, the region was at 75, and the state was at 77. Index 2, us, the region, the state, all the same at 34. Index 3, we're 70, we're a point above the region, and we're a point below the state for Index 3. And then in Index 4, we're above the 3 percentage points above the region and 2 percentage points above the state for Index 4. And that's our ratings, sort of in a nutshell. And just wanted to give you a more graphical idea of what distinctions are, and just because Mrs. Bush, you asked about distinctions, and I repeated again about the comparison group of 40 schools. Now, this chart here, what this chart gives us is a comparison of distinctions for the whole state. So 40 schools doesn't sound like a lot, but if you put those schools in our district that earn distinctions, this is what it looks like. For example, elementary schools in the state that earned top 25 progress, that distinction, there were only 326 elementary schools in the state. This is TEA's chart that I copied and pasted and modified so I can put the percentages and then add our schools into it. So that's about 4% of the elementary schools that earned that distinction in the state. We had 3 of those schools, so 3 of our schools were in that 4% for that distinction. Middle schools, 94 middle schools in the state earned that distinction, which is about 1%, and one of our middle schools earned that. High schools, 117 high schools in the state earned that distinction, top 25 progress. That's about 1%. And you can see the total number of schools in each of those categories at the very bottom. So, for example, there were 4,612 elementary schools in the state that were measured. There were 1,747 high schools in the state that were measured. And so even though our campuses, and not only us, but every campus across the state were grouped by 40 and didn't rank to earn that distinction, but when you put it in the context of the overall state, earning a distinction is a pretty elite honor. So, and you can see reading ELA, there were 547 elementary schools that earned that distinction, and that was about 6% of the elementary schools in the state, and we had 7 elementary schools that earned that distinction. Same thing in math elementary schools, 331, about 2% of the elementary schools in the state earned the distinction in math, and we had 4 elementaries that were in that 2%. And you can kind of see the rest as well. The same holds true for middle schools. We had 3 middle schools for reading ELA that were part of that 2% of middle schools in the state to earn that distinction. We had 2 middle schools to earn the math distinction, and that was about 1%. So we had 2 middle schools in our district that were part of about 1% of schools in the state to earn that distinction. So any questions about that? Just wanted to kind of put that in a more global perspective. Okay, just to summarize everything that you've saw on the screen and heard from me, we had 25 campuses that were rated for 2013. 22 of those campuses met the standard, and 3 campuses have the label improvement required, and you see appeal there with a question mark. 2 of our campuses missed it by 1 point, and so we will be looking at the appeals process and seeing if that's an option for us for those 2 campuses, because we were so close to that target score. We had 11 campuses that received distinctions, and I just showed you the global picture of that, and then of those 11 campuses earned a total of 21 distinctions, and as a district, our entire district met the standard on this 2013 accountability system. So, any questions?
Just a statement. In your opinion, we didn't do great, but we did pretty good, did we not?
We have successes to celebrate, and we have work to do on other fronts as well. So, it's as long as we have campuses with that label improvement required, we certainly can't be happy about that. As human beings, we do have to celebrate successes. I mean, nothing, that's just how we're built as human beings. If we don't hold on to some success, what's going to motivate us to keep going? And so, to answer your question, yes, there's some good things that have happened. There's some great things that have happened in certain instances, and then there are some things that we really got to take care of. So, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Augustine. What's your plan of attack, and what will be the benchmarks and that you'll be able to give the board along the way over this next year to show us that we're not going to have any more improvement required campuses?
That's a good question. Some of that plan of attack, I think Mrs. Lambert will talk about in terms of curriculum and instruction. But one plan of attack is, for example, I think it was index 2 for Ozan and index 3 for Phil Price and Blanchett. One of the biggest things we'll do from a data standpoint and an assessment standpoint is really get down to looking at who those kids are. You know, for example, if one of the conversations, and I told you Mr. Norris has been in constant conversations with me as recently as this evening. One of the things we were talking about is we have to, and in fact we're doing this tomorrow with a group of principals. We're going to sit down tomorrow and begin that calculation process. And it's pretty laborious because you have to take a campus of, you know, however many students, you know, if it's 1,300 at Ozan or 2,400 at Westbrook. But every campus is going to have to do this. And you have to individually calculate student progress. And there's no data that we got to show us this is what the student progress was. At least we haven't gotten it yet from TEA. Our software companies, you know, whether it's ours or other district software companies, our software companies hadn't caught up to the accountability system to write programs to give us that data and spit it out for us. And so we'll be hand calculating, Excel, writing programs, whatever we need to do to monitor and measure student progress on our, for example, on our local benchmarks, because we can do that simply on a benchmark and just by taking prior benchmarks from 6 weeks. I shouldn't say benchmarks, just 6 weeks tests actually. So the first 6 weeks test, second 6 weeks test, and benchmarking those out for progress. So we'll do things like that, intense data studies, and applying that data to what they're doing instructionally in the classroom. So that's the main focus coming up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr. Augustine. First of all, I agree with you. We need to celebrate our successes, and congratulations to Dr. Shagwa and everyone involved. The
Right.
successes are the fun part. Where are we, in your opinion, in getting the feel that we have a true representation of where we're at? Because I know in the beginning we had no feel. Am I correct in what you said, or sort of left out in the sort of running blind? It sounded like.
We have a better feel where we are now that we have all the data.
Right.
And we can now take ourselves and say, okay, here's where you are. Here's where you are in relationship to the state. Here's where you are in relationship to the region. Here's where you are in relationship to those other 40 campuses that we ranked you with.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have a much better idea about where we are.
So you're feeling much more comfortable that it's becoming more and more representative of the truth of where we really need to fix things and celebrate, and are we getting a little bit more comfortable each time, is what I'm asking?
Yes, we're getting more comfortable in knowing where we are.
Right. Because if you don't know where you're at, obviously you don't know how to get to where you need to go.
Before a couple of weeks ago, we simply couldn't compare ourselves to
Right.
other districts, other campuses, and things like that. Now
Okay.
we can do that, so that comfort level of finding where we are is a lot higher than it was before. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, President Reese. Dr. Augustine, great presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to, when you have time, there's no rush, but I would like to see the numbers from the other 40 schools that we're compared to, just
Okay.
overall. You don't have to break it down, each elementary, but I would just like, as for a comparison point, to get a feel for where we are in that group of 40 campuses,
Okay.
if that's possible.
It's possible, and now that group of 40 campuses is a group of 40 for every school.
Oh, for each
So
campus.
for each
okay,
of the 20.
so it's not the same
well,
40 each time.
Actually, let me revise that statement.
Okay.
Okay, because some of our campuses are part of the same 40 group. I think
I
the
see what you're
most
saying. So like Vincent was in one group of 40 schools, but
right.
Dunbar may be in a different Charlton Pollard, oh, they'll kill me if they heard me say
Right,
that.
so,
Charlton Pollard would be in a different group of 40.
Could possibly be.
Okay, I understand.
Could possibly be.
I understand what you're
To
saying.
give you an example, I think the most I saw, we had 3 elementary schools that were in the same group of 40, and I don't recall seeing more than 3 of our campuses in that
Okay.
same comparison group. But we can do that,
Or
absolutely.
just something maybe to compare, even in the group that we're in, where are we percentage-wise?
Right.
Something to that
And
nature.
actually, that's what you're saying is really linked to the question Mr. Neal asked.
Right.
You know, what are you going to do? And from research evaluation, is doing those kinds of things, really taking and honing down to really get a sense, and it goes back to what you asked too, Mr. Neal. Where are we?
Right.
Well, you have to really dig down into those groups of 40 to see where you are.
But one thing I did see, I did notice though, is that last year we were here talking about Smith Middle School, and I know that they didn't do great, but they certainly have improved. I noticed on the indexes, the indices here, that they came up. I guess there's some progress showing there.
They
So-
met the targets.
right, and that's good.
Yes.
So I'm happy to see that.
Yes,
so
they
I do
did
know
meet
that
the
there's a
targets.
lot of work going on, and we're seeing the fruits of some of that labor. So.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Okay, this is the last thing I'll do before I wrap up, but let me just talk about House Bill 5 and other changes. Some of these are, and this is particularly important for our public that's here, because I know a lot of members of the public may have kids in school. Graduation plans, that's been a shift now with House Bill 5. You know, we used to talk about recommended plan, distinguished plan, and so forth. And what used to be called a distinguished plan is going to be called the advanced plan. And we're going to have what's called endorsements as part of that plan. Now, what's interesting about graduation plans that's coming up, now, actually, let me qualify some of these things with saying that some of these things the commissioner, either the commissioner or the State Board of Education, have not determined all the rules yet. So let me say that. And graduation plans is a good example of that. For example, you all know, our public knows how our kids compete for class rankings, and and this is from reading the House Bill 5. This is my interpretation. I'll say it again. This is my interpretation. The commissioner has not made any rulings on this, but when you read House Bill 5, it seems like what graduation plan you're on will have an impact on how you're ranked, and that's never happened before. So in other words, in the past, I could be on a distinguished plan, and my classmate could be on a recommended plan, and that my classmate could outrank me on the recommended plan. It doesn't appear that that's going to be able to happen with the changes of House Bill 5. And that's one of the things our counselors are stressing to parents during registration, which has been going on. Particularly if I'm an incoming freshman, I really want to look at being on the advanced plan. It could have some serious impacts for class ranking, and we don't want kids to get to their senior year and all of a sudden realize I wasn't on the advanced plan and I cannot be in the top 10. It could have some college entrance implications for kids if you are not on the advanced plan, because it doesn't appear that you will be able to be in the top 10% without being on the advanced plan. So that's going to be real important for parents and students to understand, and we are emphasizing that quite a bit. And that's a paradigm shift, because we had kids that were on the recommended plan that ended up in the top 10% of their class and got those automatic admissions into certain universities. And so I just kind of lump graduation plans and rankings together there. I've said this in the past, and I'm just repeating it. EOC requirements, you know, we went from 15 tests, and we're down to 5, but I put the 7 in parentheses because we'll still give 7 tests in December. And that will be the last time we'll give 7 tests. Our English tests are now 2 different tests, reading and writing. After December, if a student has not passed reading and writing, then they'll have to take that combined test coming up in the spring. Another paradigm shift is substitutions for end of course AP exams, CLEP exams, SAT, ACT. Those tests will are now with House Bill 5, changes in House Bill 5, can substitute for end of course exams if a student achieves a certain score. And again, that's one of those areas where the commissioner has not determined what those scores are going to be for each of those exams, but those decisions will be made sometime this fall. But a total paradigm shift. So modified exams. So if I take STAR M, and the modified exams are for students who are our special needs students, who have modified curricula, and this year, 13-14, is the last year we would have modified exams for those students, and we just found that out. I think the commissioner published that letter last week, I think less than a week ago. So those are going to be, that's going to be a significant implication for special ed students, and so we'll have to talk about those in our admission review and dismissal meetings this school year, because that takes effect this school year. Middle school students who take algebra assessments. In previous years, for the purposes of AYP, and on your agenda, this says accountability / AYP update. The update for AYP is real fast. We're still negotiating with the U.S. Department of Education, so there is no AYP update. And so once those negotiations are done and the U.S. Department of Ed makes a decision about AYP, adequate yearly progress, the federal accountability system will find out what those requirements are. But here's what we do know from the letter the commissioner put out. Middle school students who took algebra, those algebra scores would count for that campus for accountability for AYP purposes. This school year, that will not occur. Now, that's significant because if we want our top student scores to count at our middle schools in math, those students are going to have to take both tests. So they'll have to take the algebra end of course and the 8th grade math test. So that means our kids will have to take 2 math tests. Now, the commissioner has left that decision up to school districts, but that's a decision we have to make. We're going to have to make that fairly quickly, and then those students are going to have to be notified. But that's a significant change in terms of not having to double test those kids. So those are some of the major changes I wanted to put out there for both for the board and for the public, particularly the graduation plans and the ranking and those possible implications, because that's pretty major.
Dr. Augustine, the credit by exam.
Credit by exam, yeah, and yes, you're right. I didn't put that one on there. We did have a pretty major shift in credit by exam. Credit by exam can occur in 2 ways. Kids can accelerate. So if I want to skip a course, I can elect to take a credit by exam. The district administers that exam. In the past, if I scored a 90 or above, I would receive credit for that course, and then I could skip that course. House Bill 5 reduced that score from 90 to 80. And so we anticipate that we'll have more students wanting to do credit by exam. We have some students who want to skip a whole grade level. And so they'll take, 4 subject area tests. If they score 90 or above, they would skip, let's say, 8th grade and move to 9th grade, or 7th grade and move to 8th grade. And that's now been lowered, again, from 90 to 80. And so that's a significant shift as well. In fact, the credit by exam is another one of those, well, I was going to say it's another substitution, but I'm not going to say that. I don't remember credit by exam being a substitution for end of course. So a lot of information, a lot of changes, some paradigm shifts. But overall, House Bill 5 is a good bill, even though it's complex. It requires a lot of work. Overall, it's a good bill for kids. We're going to be able to do some things with industry, with higher education, for our kids, and it's just going to take some work. One of the other things that I want to mention too about House Bill 5 and graduation plans is that our students, we have the opportunity now as a district, you have the opportunity as a school board to essentially bypass the State Board of Education, work with, let's say, an ExxonMobil, and an LIT, create a course, and have that kid receive high school credit and possibly dual credit for a course that you all as a school board approves, particularly for kids who want to go into the workforce. So we have that kind of flexibility now with House Bill 5, and so that's pretty unique, and we'll just have to take advantage of that. We'll be bringing things like that to you probably this school year. So, any other questions?
Well, while you're there, Dr. Augustine, the board wants to give you a challenge, Dr. Jaguar, to bring this out in a newsletter, because a lot of folks are not here, need to know of all these changes so that their children can be prepared for the year to come. So we would like, as a board, they agree?
Yes, sir. We can make that happen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Augustine. At this time, Ms. Lambert, I'd like for you to do a little bit about, I don't know, who wants to start, Dr. Bonton or Ms. Lambert? Okay, Ms. Lambert, if you would. You can cut that line back. Okay, Ms. Lambert.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jaguar, President Reese, board members, and members of our audience. Data drives instruction, and we just received a major data report with our district meeting the standard with a very complex accountability system. You continue to ask Mr. Neild and several of you, what are we doing, what have we done, and now that we have the data, what are we going to do with it? This past summer, we spent over $500,000 at the 3 high school campuses and 2 middle school campuses, remediating students and targeting those students who had not yet met the standard from last year's assessments. Each time those retests were given, we saw a 30 to 40% increase each time. We still, as Dr. Augustine said, have our work cut out for us, and we're remediating those students continuously. C-Scope is our district's curriculum management tool. It's a curriculum management system. A lot of information, a lot of discussion during the last 4 months about that curriculum management tool took place at the state level and at the regional levels. We gave a report at a board meeting this past summer saying that our district is still using the C-Scope management system. However, exemplar lessons are not included. Included tonight is a recommendation for us to continue to adopt and use that C-Scope management system minus the lessons, and the Region 5 that manages that with the collaborative project within our region has reduced that bill to show that those lessons are no longer included in C-Scope. Our curriculum content supervisors worked very feverishly this summer with curriculum mappers and curriculum writers reviewing all of the components of our curriculum. And they have included focus lessons, unit detail maps, 6 weeks exams, resources, activities, textbook materials, and all sorts of activities to make our teachers aware of and able to access the curriculum online with upgraded standards, looking at the TEKS as they are currently presented by the state. So what we have done initially is to look at our curriculum as it was and make the necessary enhancements and adjustments to align with the written, tested, and taught curriculum that our students will need to be successful. The state has released test items from the prior test that we had when we started the new STAR EOC assessments. So that is the major piece, making sure we have an aligned curriculum with state TEKS as they are, and some of the TEKS are changing and being enhanced, And as the state releases new information, our curriculum content supervisors are on top of it, and we have a core group of teacher mappers and writers who were selected by those content supervisors. In addition to that, the title department funds curriculum coordinators. In the past, we've had curriculum coordinators at the elementary level and secondary representatives that were mostly in the form of assistant principals who had to share instructional responsibilities with disciplinary responsibilities. This past couple of months, you have approved hiring curriculum coordinators at the secondary level. So most of our secondary schools this year, 2013-14, will begin with a curriculum coordinator on each of those campuses where they can focus solely on instruction. So that's another upgrade that we are, an enhancement that we've done within the curriculum unit. Additionally, Dr. Shagwar has given us approval to have a staff development Wednesday. So the second Wednesday of each month, all campuses will be, we review our data ongoing in an ongoing manner. Now on the second Wednesday of each month, all staff will be required to have a professional development session based on the data. Now that means what one school may be working on may be different from the other campus depending upon what that data is telling them. So we're working very closely with the curriculum coordinators and the department heads and the administrators of those campuses to look at specific pieces of data to drive the instructional processes on the campuses. We're also going to be looking at our tutorial programs on each of the campuses. What are we doing with it? Or do we just have a basic tutorial program? We're letting the data tell us what we need to do. As Dr. Augustine indicated, we are additionally having meetings, elementary meetings, middle school meetings, and secondary high school meetings, because as the accountability picture is laid out for us, as all of the components and those indices indicate, every level has something different to look at, and those numbers are different. Principals, curriculum coordinators, department heads, curriculum mappers, all of the instructional leaders, our teacher leaders on campus, we have to retrain ourselves as to what does this data mean and what does it tell us. It is totally different from what we were accustomed to doing in the past. And it's not, you look at it tonight and you understand all of it in its totality. We have to assess it, we have to tease it, we have to turn it upside down and backwards. What does this mean? And do our teachers understand what it means? Do our parents understand what we're putting in print and showing them? Do our counselors understand the changes Dr. Augustine just alluded to? We have had several counselor meetings, particularly at the high school level, because our counselors now have to be retrained. Our counselors are now having to look at each component of this accountability system. Do they understand it enough in order to communicate it to our parents? So we are meeting with our counselors every week, and you are correct. Our counselors need to be armed with this information, and we have begun that process already. We have had 3 meetings thus far with our counselors, taking one piece at a time, because 2013, 2014, some of this is already approved, and we have to implement starting on the 26th of August. We'll receive additional instructions from our commissioner in October on another piece of the legislation. In January, we'll receive another piece. Then there's another section that's going to be implemented in 2014, 2015, and so forth and so on. And most importantly, even those students in, say, 11th grade this coming year, or 12th grade, 11th grade, most importantly, they have the option of still being under the old accountability system. But it is incumbent upon our counselors to say to them, this is the new system, these are the new requirements. That has a major implication on graduation in the next 2 or 3 years. So we have armed our counselors with that information. The course offering guide that was adopted back in February rather, we have updated it, and we do have the latest information that we have from TEA included in there. We also have plans to have several parent meetings this fall so that our parents are armed with the information and understand that information. The graduation plans have to be signed by every parent and every student. So our counselors have been directed. We've given the information to our vocational counselors. Their job descriptions are going to change. So there is a lot that we have undertaken in order to make sure that our parents, our students, and our teachers are armed with the information, and not just armed with it by giving them a piece of paper, but that they do understand it, because it is very complex. But again, with our instructional coordinators on each site, enhancing our tutorial programs, a staff development Wednesday being driven by what the data tells us on a weekly, bi-weekly, and 6-week basis, not just a one-shot deal. We're looking at the data at every turn, and we're patterning our instruction by what we have received from the state. I have challenged each of our counselors, our administrative leaders, and our teachers to check the TEA site daily, because there are daily updates given to us in the instructional arena. The House Bill 5 covers pre-K through 12. The biggest changes are at the high school, with our graduation plans having been changed drastically. So I will be working very closely with the counselors and the principals, which I have already started, to making sure they not only read it, but they understand it and they apply it appropriately at each of our grade levels. Dr. Bonton?
Cut your mic on,
Thank
Dr.
you.
B.
I think it is now. Along with Dr. Augustine, we're really working closely together. We realize that our high school students, they're under a lot of pressure. So you have 16 elementary principals that are dedicated to delivering a stronger student. As Mrs. Lambert said, the elementary teams, we are focused on our data. As a matter of fact, our title team just held a 2-day academy for the new curriculum coordinators that were just hired by you. Thank you very much. As well as for those veteran curriculum coordinators. They're excited and they're ready to hit the ground running. They have identified those students that are in need of assistance, and they've also identified those students that are on grade level and that we need to push to move as far as they can. I do want to take just a little time to talk about the summer school programs because it seems as though school never really ended. We've been keeping our students very busy, and they have worked really, really hard. We want to thank our leaders, our principals, our bus drivers, our cooks, our custodians who dedicated their summer to making sure that they served our students very well. So we want to thank you all so much for supporting us with our summer school programs. There were over 15, maybe 20 summer school programs. You had your after-school centers for education. You had the ACE program that was delivering a summer program. You had bilingual and ESL that delivered a summer school program to help those students improve their language skills for those early learners. You also had the Bingman Head Start program. So we had some summer schools for our three-year-olds and for our 4-year-olds. We had a camp invention for those students who are really, really excited about science. It's a science enrichment program. So our students were involved in that. Dishman Elementary, they held a summer school program that was focused on the arts and organized sports. And then you had Success Express, where we worked with a university professor from Lamar University, and she worked closely with our pre-K students. We had our STAR remediation program, or I should say our STAR acceleration program, because we know we need to get those students on track, and we need to do that in a very timely manner. Our title program serviced at least 450 students who were below grade level and who need extensive reteaching in order to be prepared for the next grade level. So that was one of our summer programs. And then you also had Amelia Elementary. They had a hands-on summer program as well. So we've been very, very busy. We're not tired. We've been re-energized because we've gotten those results. So now we know where we stand. Now we know what the game is all about. We want to make sure, as Ms. Lambert said, we want to make sure that we're aligning our daily instruction to those state standards. So hopefully this time next year, we will be able to show some improvements, show some significant gains. We're not going to be satisfied until we get that 100% graduation. So elementary understands the charge, and we understand that we've got to deliver a stronger product to Ms. Lambert and her team.
Do we have any questions for these two ladies? As you see, they've got a lot of information about what's going on. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but I want to say I heard that $500,000 that was spent for remediation. I think that's money well spent. We always cry about where we're spending dollars, so I want you to know that I appreciate every dollar, every penny that was spent on remediation of our students. So, and thank all of the people that have been involved this summer with working in those programs. I certainly had my grandson in one of them to keep him away from the house. So thank you so much for all those programs and for the effort that went behind it, and I'm sure the success we're going to see with it. Thank you.
I agree totally with what Ms. Bush said. The summer did go by too quick, and I do want to thank all of you that, and especially our teachers and custodians and everybody that worked this summer, because believe me, I know what we pay for these programs to go work, you're not going to retire off of it. And so it is a labor of love that most of these people put in. I do also agree, and I think this board is in agreement when we know that there are needed programs for the education of these kids, whether it's special summer programs or whatever. I think each and every one of us are committed to knowing as you know, the money being spent properly, and that there is a true need for it. And I don't think anybody sitting here has a problem with us budgeting that and moving forward with it, because we are going to see good results. It sounds like y'all have a good marching order laid out before you, and that what really was what I appreciated hearing is that now this does sound like there's a mechanism at any given time we're going to be able to kind of monitor and see what level these different campuses and these students are at. So if there is one falling behind, we can make a decision here as to how we want to address that issue and help those students. So again, thank you for those reports.
Okay. Again, thank you, ladies. Dr. Augustine. Wow, today was a great day as well. I don't know, Ms. Jones is not here, but our professional development supervisor, director, I think she had about 93 people, 93 new teachers. Ms. Como, am I correct? 93, right at 100. So we had new teacher orientation today. It will continue tomorrow. I want to thank ATPE and BTA. We may have some of those representatives in the audience. Thank you, ladies, for all the goodies and things you had today for the staff. It's really nice to come and see that people are interested, of course, in what's going on between the two ears, so to speak. And I hate I did not have my red shirt on. So I should have been like Mr. Tom Neal here, at least have me a red tie on. Convocation is coming up on Monday. Now, I want you all to know we're doing something differently. So if you hear a few complaints, blame it on me. I can take it. We're going to actually partner with the city of Beaumont, and we're holding our convocation at the Civic Center. Many of you know we had a lot of work going on at Westbrook, so we had really very limited parking there, and we used to hold convocation there. Also, many of you know for the past 3 years, I think we've held convocation at Ozan High School, And if anybody's been down toward Ozan lately on Finette Road, you know it's bad. I mean, the city has torn up a lot of the streets. So again, I know parking is probably going to be a problem for convocation. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing, myself personally, and Mr. Brooks, because he's the principal of this building, our group, the administration here, not all of us, because some of them have to be there real early, we're encouraging the different facilities and campuses to actually ride the bus. So we will board the bus here on Monday morning at whatever time he tells me to be here, and then we'll ride over to the Civic Center because there's only about 500, I think, parking slots. And so if you don't get there early, you may have to park down there by the Julie Rogers and so on and so forth. And we're going to do some things differently. So once the principals receive this incentive pay money that you all approved, the modified plan, the principal is going to get back on the bus, and I'll tell you what, we're going to be following Mr. Brooks because he's going to be the man with the money, and we're going to get back on the bus, and then they'll probably deliver those checks at the home campus. So we're expecting a lot of excitement from convocation. There was a lot of excitement with new teacher orientations, and so anyway, staff, just be prepared. City of Beaumont, be prepared. I do know businesses are getting prepared for those teachers because it seems, Mr. Williams, all those checks you sign, man, they spend it all in one day. So there'll be a lot of money spent in the city of Beaumont that day, and the public does appreciate you putting those monies back into our staff where, of course, as you heard from Dr. Augustine, those results were, in many cases, pretty good. And, of course, we are going to address those areas that are not. First day of school is coming up. Tassa Tasby, I think Ms. Antoine has either contacted you either by email or phone. I think you've confirmed your participation in the Texas Association of Administrators or the Texas Association of School Board Conference. That's September 27th through the 29th. We also are getting prepared. We'll call for an election. So that's another deal that we'll be dealing with. I think maybe one of the first times we'll be trying to do that also with starting up schools. So this administrative team and our campus teams, they're hard working. Also, you have the NAPSI conference coming up, and I think you've received information on that. That's November 13th through the 17th. And I want to remind you, Mr. Williams, when you don't be looking for me, October 20th through the 24th. I will be participating in the Superintendent's Academy. As you know, I got in here swimming, and I probably didn't take the time I needed to do that for myself, but I will do that this year. A few other things. Dr. Paul Shipman, our principal at Dishman, he's the new president-elect for TEPSA. So you have a lot of great things happening in the district. Also, you heard a few times ACE, the After-School Centers for Education. Actually, I think this was Austin Middle School. Alpha Guillory, they were selected as the top ACE site in the state. So Dr. Lona Alexander and her team and the ACE team over there with Miss Guillory, they've done a phenomenal job. And also, we're going to be launching a new website. Hopefully it's going to be a lot more user-friendly, so just be prepared for that. I thought I would take the time tonight to show you a preview, but I decided because of time that we won't do that. All right, a couple other issues. I met with the Beaumont Metropolitan Council, or the PTA group, this week, and they're excited. We have a new president, Mr. Leonard Parfait, and his board met with me the other day, and they're the group who represent the parents of the PTA. So we want to have a big push for getting our parents involved, because these are their schools, these are their children. And you heard all these changes. We have our work cut out. I mean, we have some real work cut out, and trying to make sure parents are educated about this is really where I want to devote my time this year. And maybe I can spend it less in other areas, but I really want to make sure parents are informed, so we're working with them. And finally, I didn't mention there will be a health fair too at the convocation. So Ms. Harrison and her group and our Nurse Connie Richards, we want to make sure we give you your plug at convocation. But many of you have either heard vicariously. That's correct. The health fair, due to parking and all of those things, we've adjusted the times. The health fair, those of you know, it used to start at 7:30, so it will start at 8. And the actual program will start promptly at 9. So we're gonna back things up about 30 minutes. So Mr. Reese, the actual program, I know you normally come. Any of our other board members planning on being at convocation, so we can take. So one, are you gonna be there?
It's 9, it might be a little
9.
bit after 9.
Okay. So 1, 2. Mr. Williams, I know you'll be working. Ms. Bush, you'll be working. Mr. Reed. So it looks like Delaware. All right. It looks like at least three of our board members. But we're excited about that. All right. The last thing, I know this has been making the news, and the Legislative Budget Board. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. But we did receive the report, and of course there are lots of information in the budget board report. Each of you has received your copy, and of course we're excited about being able to take our time and go through this. I am excited that some of the major things that they ask about are recommended. We're already in the process of putting in place. I think one thing was stressed was the contract administration. What we've hired, you've hired, thank you for that. We've put that in place. One thing they mentioned was about direct deposit and so on and so forth. As most of our staff knows, and all of you should know, September 10th, I see some people smiling, the district will no longer be writing paper checks. So you must have direct deposit, or you will receive your pay on one of those cards. So we have begun the process of looking through these 85 recommendations and trying to figure out how we're going to do that. Now, how does a person eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. You all worked with me quite well over the past 11 months. Actually, I'll make 1 year next month. And we accomplished quite a bit. Your school business office, superior rating under School First. We actually became a state comptroller gold district because of our transparency and putting all of our information out there available to the public. So a lot of these things that have been suggested or that we feel like help us to operate more effectively, we've started moving in that direction. You heard a lot of things about curricular challenges we're going to be dealing with. So we just have a lot of work here, and I do want to make sure that you're aware that this is out there. Finally, the last thing I'll say about the Legislative Budget Board, they did mention that we have to have training. And as you know, one of the first thing that I did as your new superintendent in September, I had you in training. And so over that time, we've spent a lot of time with former Commissioner Mike Moses and Dr. Rod Page. You all got to meet him. As we've traveled, as we've done those things, and we had our site visits here, as you had your committee meetings. And so you worked on procedures and things of that nature. And so later on in the meeting today, we're going to be asking you for some things to consider when you deal with, because one of the first things they said is that you have to have some better operation procedures. So we are highly aware of this data from the Legislative Budget Board. But I wanted you to hear tonight what I feel is most important, and that is the data representing your students' performance. And I want our staff to know they did a yeoman's job They did a yeoman's job because many of the distractions that went around or above their head, they stayed true to the mission, the power of purpose. It's about children. Mr. Neal, I like how you said it's a mission. It's a mission. It's mission work. And despite everything, they focused on the mission, and we got it done. Now, how can we get it done a little bit better? And I think you've heard the plan. You've heard the plan of attack. You've heard the process, how we're going to measure and monitor data. And I stand here or sit here before you letting you know that we're going to continue the fight to see that every child, 100%, I will not be satisfied with anything less than 100% of each of our children graduates prepared for college, the workforce. You heard about the innovative curriculum that we're going to be trying to work with Exxon Mobil's and LIT, and then also our military. So we believe that we have the best resource in the world, Mr. Williams, and I know you're happy that your grandson's been hanging out with you here, but we're empowered to make sure that this world is a better place through our children. And so thank you all for letting me represent all of the good things happening as it relates to education and your students this afternoon. I'll take any questions if you have any concerns.
Yes, sir, Dr. Shagwell. I have basically a request, a comment and a question. Going back over everything you've covered going back to the bond issue. Number one, as of today, and this has been a nagging problem, we're still having a roof leak out at the Westbrook Fieldhouse. So that's just my comment.
Oh, let me, Mr. We have not paid them yet, right? So I mean for people to deliver what they said they were going to do.
My request is that on the bond issue, I know you said you were thinking about or looking at selecting a project in each phase. I would like to request that you look at an outside audit firm that specializes in construction audit that's from out of our area and get a price to present to the board, that we look at a complete audit on the total bond issue, because some of the comments that were made in the legislative budget board really stuck out to me is that they couldn't even get things to balance out. And I think we owe it to this community to look at that, and if you could come back to us with what the cost of an outside firm is, and then let this board make the decision as to if we want to spend that kind of money or where we want to get those funds from. And then my last is a question. I've had a couple calls from teachers regarding the convocations. They are going, and but they're going to, a couple of them or said they're going to drive their vehicles just because of the location where they're at, and they want to know, they want to make sure they'll still be able to get their check that day, and
That's
that it will not be mailed to them 2 weeks later.
That's correct. Again, I'm riding the bus, and so, if I ask someone to do something, I need to be willing to do it myself. So we do know that there will be people who have to work. Some of my own staff are going to have to drive. They're going to be there at 6 in the morning. That means they'll just have to get in their vehicle and follow the bus back to the campus. Because, again, remember, space is going to be very, very limited.
So,
but yes, they can get their checks.
So they can go back to their campus and they'll be
If
issued their
they were
checks.
at convocation. That's right. It is a draw, and they can be mad if they want, but you must be at convocation to receive your check that day. I think it's about family and about people being a part of the process. But if you're there and you leave and you have to drive and follow the bus back, we're excited for you. Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have to be at convocation to get our checks?
I have a check for you. I'll give it to you after the meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No, you're not on the list. Okay. I think we've covered a lot, but thank you all and audience. I do know it was very important for you to hear all of these changes curricularly, because come May next year, Ms. Ambrose, some parent is not going to understand these new graduation completion rate issues. And we're going to be trying to do everything in our power, working with BMAC and PTA to get the information out to parents that the game has changed.
President Reese,
Yes.
if there are no other questions to come before the superintendent, I'd like to,
But there is.
okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, since Mike want to celebrate, Dr. Augustine want to celebrate, I think I heard you want to celebrate, and look like Tom want to celebrate. I want to celebrate. So I want the board of trustees to join me. Wait, first of all, is Westbrook Auditorium ready for students?
Yes, it's ready for students.
Can they park on their parking lot?
Yes, and let me say that we are going to put some speed bumps over there. I was over there one day, and I see some heads nodding. Yes, we're going to, Mr. McCraney has already made that recommendation so that we can protect their safety. But it's ready. I think we have some doors to adjust for ADA, but it's ready. Yes, sir. Day one, they'll be ready to go.
Is the field house ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we still want that roof corrected, but it is available for use.
Well, I want the board of trustees and the audience that would like to participate. I was going to get a drum roll from Dr. Bonton, but I had that little corny thing about 2 bits. Well, we'll do it anyway. Can I get a drum roll, Dr. Bonton? And what we're going to do is we're going to congratulate Dr. Shagwar, his tireless months, 11 months, with all the distractions, that Westbrook is finally ready to be occupied by our children of that high school, which was the last project on the thing. So this is a great thing to celebrate. It's almost like at an Astros game, that 7th inning stretch. I feel like stretching, so I don't know about y'all. So Dr. Bonton, drum roll. All right, can you participate with me? 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, $1. All for BISD. Stand up and holler.
All right.
I told you sometime I'm a little corny. Okay, with that, we'll have Ms. Bush. Ms. Bush, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, President Reese. I sent a note, and I'm glad there's a lot of enthusiasm here tonight, so maybe I won't get booed, but I sent a note to the superintendent that I was highly concerned because the comments seem to have gotten more inflammatory, and I was asking if at all possible, I'd like to make a motion to move the communications till after the executive session. I know that it requires a vote of the board, but I would like to make a motion to move that item until after the executive session.
Madam Attorney, is that in order?
I do have my Robert's Rules of Order. You would require a second and a 2/3 vote. So there's 6 of you here tonight, so you would need 4. You would need a second and a vote of 4.
Okay, it's been motioned by Ms. Bush and second by Mr. Williams that we move the communications to the end of executive session. Is there any questions? Mr. Mike Neal has the floor.
I don't think that's a good idea. And let me say this, because if the reason is because of the, I guess, the emotion of the communications, first of all, I think we're all big boys and big girls and we can take what's said. But I think in the situation, by the time that the board in the meeting gets going, the emotions start to calm down. So when everyone leaves, I think all the emotions have died down some. My concern, and it really doesn't matter to me as long as we have communications, that we're going to wait until after the executive session, and then we're going to get the emotional comments from the public, and then we're going to let them go at each other. There's going to be no time for the emotions to calm down a little bit. So that's the only concern that I have about it. My main concern is that we do have an opportunity to hear communications. That's my first concern, though.
If we are big boys and big girls, we shouldn't have that problem. If we're big boys and big girls, we shouldn't have a problem. You say the emotions coming up and we're going to let them go at each other. We shouldn't have that problem then. That's what I'm saying too about their emotions. Since they're big boys and big girls, we shouldn't have that emotion.
Let me clarify. I'm not claiming they're big boys and big girls. Okay, they have a lot of, and you've been on the board a long time. It's been, I don't even know if you ever spoke.
But even if that's the case, Mike.
No. I'm not saying that derogatory towards you. I was going to make a comment.
No, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is that I think we should be adults enough to know that we shouldn't have to go through this now.
I understand.
It's on.
I understand what you're saying, Terry. I really do.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is,
We're going to go one at one at a time rule.
I understand, but
Okay.
I think a little communication's okay. But I agree with you. I've been on that side. I've gotten emotional, and it's the emotion that builds up is because you have that 1.5 minutes to say what you've been wanting to say for a month, or 3.5 minutes. We have the opportunity to speak when we want, at length when we want. That's the only comment I have. I agree with what you're saying. We should be able to, but if the concern is because of the emotion, I just think that maybe it's best to let the emotion die down during the meetings as opposed to letting everyone out. That's the only thing I'm saying. Okay? And I say that with respect.
Ms. Z has the floor.
And I appreciate your comment, Mr. Neal. I have been on this board for quite some time, and I know that we've coming off of a high of hearing about the children's progress, and I want to stay on that high. I come here, I volunteer my time just like the remainder of you, and I don't mind positive comments that to improve the district. But typically what we get from that podium is not for improvement. It's more of an insult to the majority of the board members that sit here that do volunteer their time. We get jeering. We get, even when the superintendent was speaking earlier, we get people that are disrespectful. And I, for one, feel that if I'm volunteering my time, I don't have to sit and be subjected to that. And so I would appreciate that, and that proves my point right there, that if we're going to have communications and they're not for the benefit of the students, they're not for the benefit of the district, they're more to just get at the board members, then I can certainly wait till the very end of the meeting for that to be moved, and then I can remove myself if necessary.
Okay, with that also, I think that a lot of times the audiences leave after the comments. I think they need to be here and hear the business of this board. So at this time, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. That is 4. All opposed? That is 2. Motion carries. Okay, Ms. Z, action items?
President Reese, I have been asked by a couple of board members to remove some of the items from the consent agenda. And if we can't have
audience, would y'all like to be dismissed while you're talking? Or let us conduct the meeting in peace, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Z?
Items, I've been asked by Mr. Neal and Neal to remove some of the items from the consent agenda. So I will not be reading letters B as in boy, F as in Frank, N as in Nancy, P as in Paul, Z as in zebra, letters AA, BB, and letter A3. The remaining items will be a part of the consent agenda. So for consent agenda items, we will be voting on items A1 and A2, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter G, letter H, I, J, K, L, M, O, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, C, C, and that's it.
Okay, it's been motion and second. Motion by Ms. Z, second by Mr. Williams, as we already said. Is there any other discussion on those items? And those items are, and might catch me if I mess up here, A1, A, B, C, and 2.
Correct.
C, D, E, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, O, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and C, C. Is there any discussion on those items? Is there any? Mr. Tom Neal has the floor.
Yes, President Reese. My question is concerning item U. This is about the hazardous bus route, and it's clearly identified here and given in a written description. But my question is, and we might have this already, but is there a map is there a detailed, easy-to-read map that can be put online instead of trying to sit here and figure, say, from Charlton Paulder, you got to go southeast on MLK to Washington, west on Washington to 4th, north on Washington, all these different directions and stuff, and it would be, I think it'd be really nice if we had a map that showed, those areas where those routes are, so people could easily read it. And like I said, we might already have it, and if I hadn't seen it, let me know.
I'll have Mr. Brooks look into that. Do you know of that, Mr. Brooks?
No, sir, I don't know that we have a map like that. I would like to say that these are the same hazardous routes as presented last school year. We've not made any changes in that. I don't know what's wrong with my mic, but we can surely look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's pretty difficult to figure it out. I mean, if you, like I said, a picture's worth 1,000 words to be able to get on a map, and it's easy to understand. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other questions? Hearing or seeing none, you will vote by your right hand. All in favor, raise your right hand. That is 5 for. Are there any opposers? There's one opposer. Motion carries. Ms. Z?
I'm sorry. Letter A3, letter B, letter F, letter N, letter P, letter Z, letter AA, and letter BB. I am recommending those items. I'm motioning for those items as in one pack.
It's been motioned by Ms. Z, second by Mr. Williams, that we, for consideration, might catch me if I'm slipping up. Now you got to pay attention. Where am I? Exiting those. That's going to be A3, B, F, N, P, Z, AA, and BB.
Yes.
Is there any questions? Mr. Tom Neal has the floor.
Yes, sir. Concerning action item B, which is consider and appropriate take action to approve payments for the team software packages for 2013 and 14 school year. This is a payment for $248,750, and we paid the same amount last year. But my concern is when you look at the LBB report, it makes reference that the district team system has a bank reconciliation component that the district has not implemented because ProLogic, the software vendor, is still developing the module. My question is that we've paid for a system, but we didn't get a complete system, according to what the LBB is telling us. And number one, did they come back and fix that situation? And if not, shouldn't they be issuing us a credit?
Okay. Most of us have felt or have dealt with computers. As far as I know, they roll out packages as they become available, but I will definitely make sure Mr. Schumacher looks into that in that specialized area. But we do know at this point it is a very robust program. It serves the district, and we've continued to grow and develop and utilizing it. But you make a very good point. I will definitely look into that. No, man, we have to have, the district has to have a operating system, and Teams has been that system at least for the past 5 years, and I'll be the first to go on record to say I didn't like it. I didn't. But I wasn't here at that time to make that decision, and so we've got it. Our teachers have gone through, where are my teachers in the audience? They struggle through it, and not that they love it now, but we got it, and we bought it, and we're going to continue to use it, and we'll continue to roll out those additions as they come through.
All right, thank you. And then also on action item F, which is consider and, if appropriate, employ the law firm of Walsh Anderson, Galgoas, Green, and Trevino, PC under retainer agreement for administrative and board regulations and operating procedures, and on an hourly basis to conduct personnel investigation. There were the problem I had the first was that we did not receive this attachment until sometime yesterday, and we've had this discussion several times. I know that the letter was dated and to the board back on Monday the 12th, so there's no reason that we should not have received this earlier in our package. Now there's two agreements in there. The first one is the legal service agreement, and it reads the scope of work is professional conduct investigation. Law firm will conduct an investigation into an incident that occurred at a board meeting. The scope of services include interviews of 5 witnesses, attendance at the board meeting to present findings, and a written summary of the findings to be delivered after the board meeting. My question in that, it says attendance at the board meeting. When will that be? And then it says the findings will be delivered after the board meeting. I don't understand what that, that means.
Yes, sir. I'll address your first one. As you may notice, and remember, when I can provide an exhibit to you as early as I can, I will always try to do that. But I did take the liberty to change this exhibit as of about 5 o'clock. So again, there are many things going on in the day of the superintendent and, of course, our staff. And sometimes I have to prioritize things, and you see there are a lot of items. So when I finally got a chance to review it, I also reviewed it with our local attorney, and I asked for some additional changes. Those changes were made, so we made those. So that's why, again, I was a delay in terms of receiving that. As far as the investigation, as you know, we did have an incident that involved, of course, a board member and a staff member. And so I believe it's fair to this situation that we have an independent person come in and conduct that. I don't want to give a date and say that the investigation will be completed by, we have a board meeting on the 22nd. It's possible that the investigation may be completed by the 22nd. It may be sometime in September. So I do, though, want you to realize that whatever findings are found, that we will discuss those probably in executive session, but it will be done at a board meeting. That's my interpretation of that.
All right, there's two documents, and one is a retainer.
Yes, sir.
Are we also putting this firm on retainer for the following year? What's the purpose of that?
Okay, good question. One of the things, we are developing a board operating guide, and we worked in tandem with RGA and CRSS. You've done all those trainings. I'm also, as you all have charged me, and as we see in the LBB, we need also administrative regs. As you know, our attorney does a whole lot of different things for us. What we found out with the Walsh firm is that they're available by phone, and they specialize in administrative regulations and processes. So what it will do is allow my team to continue its work in developing our admin, and it's $1,000 a year. So I think it's probably going to be one of the best $1,000 that we spend so that we can call this attorney at any time. They have a fleet of attorneys and ask them, okay, we want to put in this regulation. Is it okay? And as you all know, we get challenged on just about everything that we do. So we're looking to be able to proceed expeditiously. And at that case, I don't think always that our Ms. Chappelle will be able to respond as quickly as we're going to need when we start developing the admin regulations. So yes, sir, it is a relationship over the year for $1,000 that allows us basically unlimited phone calls.
All right. And in this agreement, it states the telephone consultation. It says the law firm will provide telephone consultation at no charge to the district's board president, superintendent, and the special ed director. Now, I thought we just hired a special ed law firm here just a couple of months back, or a firm that specializes in special ed. Why are we getting all these overlapping law firms?
Okay, again, as you see, this, Ms. Chappelle, you want to answer?
Well, I was going to answer, Walsh Anderson is the premier special ed school law firm in the state of Texas, but we hired the law firm associated with our insurance to handle our due process hearings, not to go into our special ed regs. And that is something that the insurance council has tried to realign for the district, and has made it very clear to the special ed department that we have to have administrative regs that are updated so that we can continue to reduce the amount of due process hearings that we have. So it's not an overlap, because the law firm that we hired was to actually do the due process hearings, not to go in and regulate or fix our special ed administrative guides.
Okay, and thank you for that. I do agree they are a very, very respected and prestigious firm. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that. But I do have a concern in that our board policy right now, it states that if a trustee has a concern, that we can send it to you, and that is it my understanding that either you or the board president will be the only ones that have the option of whether that gets forwarded or not?
Well, also, you will have a designee. You know, we've hired someone to help me or assist me in that, in Miss Victoria Stewart, but she will probably be the one making the calls to this firm as it relates specifically to developing admin regulations and procedures that go with that. I think that as you have challenged me, as the LBB has challenged us, we have some operating issues that we need to deal with, and this is one way to expedite, I think, that process, both from the board process and now also admin regulations. And let me say this about special ed as well. We've done quite a bit of work in special ed and reduction of legal fees, and so they're very well aware of how to move forward. And so, hey, make a phone call. Okay, we're going to put this in this process. Is this okay? Yes, it's okay. So this is less than $100 a month for us to have quick access to someone that'll answer by phone, and then we can move on, or they can move on to the next issue.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know I had a lot of questions, and
Yeah,
Mike?
Let some other board members get a turn. But Mike, right before you go, Madam Attorney, if the single board members call you every day, is that a cost?
Mr. President, it depends on what the call is about and what it leads to. You know, if I get a call from board members and it's just a question, then no. But if I get a call from a board member that requires me to go research something, then yes.
There's a fee.
There's a fee. But I think the board has done a good job in making sure that things that come to me through the superintendent, not through board members.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McNeil has the floor.
Thank you. Let me ask you one question, Dr. Shagwad, to make sure I understand your answer to Tom. And it sounds like it's a bargain with these people. If we have something, do we go through Ms. Stewart? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, you still need to call me, but Ms. Stewart is going to be basically your legs and arms in terms of me helping me to get it done.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to.
Yeah. No, you as board, you carte blanche, man. You call me directly.
Okay.
And from there, if I can't answer it, and we need a quick turnaround on I'll give it to her to actually go make it happen.
Okay. And as usual, I always want to thank you for being available. I know you're busy. I've heard.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But
anyway.
Okay. I have some questions on the general fund budget. You know, we're dipping into it. Y'all are asking us to dip into another $3.2 million, which is considerable. It shows on the other report as of July 31st, if I'm reading it correctly, that our general fund is at almost 22.5 million. from what I'm seeing. Do you mind if I direct this to?
Yes,
to
please.
Devin?
Mr.
Devin?
McCraney and Dr. Bonton can
Okay.
answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and Dr. Bonton, is that 22.5 million that it shows as of July 31st, is that before we take out the 3.2 that y'all are asking us to take out of the general fund right now? That is before?
You have
Okay.
to- you have to answer into the mic.
That's okay, I can see him even with my glasses on.
No, we need it for record.
Okay.
But I want to explain, and I know you're asking him.
That's okay.
Remember, during the year, we get payments off and on. So at one point in time, you had $40-something million in your fund balance because we received a payment. And so it depends on when the payment comes in. And this is about closeout. So your fund balance will always fluctuate.
Okay.
But you remember when we were in budget discussions, we talked about the 11 million. I shared with you this year we would probably go in 6 million. So this is the other 3 million of that I pretty much let you know we felt like would happen. And
Right, so this is, that's what I was going to ask. This is included in the 6, not in addition to. This is the second
Right,
half of the 6.
total.
Yes, sir, it's the second
Okay.
half of the 6.
Excuse me. When we're looking at, for example, maintenance and transportation, what I don't understand is, you know, we just did an $800,000, I'm going to say amendment. I don't know what you call it. Why can't we come at one time with something? You know, why didn't we ask for 1.8 then? Help me understand the finance part or the accounting part as to why we asked for, y'all asked for 800 million 2-3 months ago, and now another $1 million. I'm just looking at maintenance, for example.
Maintenance, because there are things that happen as it relates to chillers, as it relates to a lot of things that sometimes we can't control for. I want to say, I believe it was Dishman and maybe two or three facilities. I see teachers nodding their heads, and when those chillers go out, we just got to replace them, and sometimes we can't get to them. Now remember, another one of my charges that are things that I said I wanted to work on was a maintenance operation cycle. And I got 85 recommendations from the LBB. I have House Bill 5 and graduation and completion rates. So we are trying to prioritize things and get those done. But there are times with maintenance, there are certain things we can't explain.
Okay, so
I mean,
these are,
can't really project. But I think Mr. McCraney has included in your packet kind of a breakdown of where those costs come from for that $1 million and for transportation and so on and so forth.
okay, so these are when you asked for the 800,000, this 1 million you couldn't anticipate it, is what you're saying.
Right, and no, sir, I couldn't.
Okay, that's
If
okay.
I
I'm just
could, I
trying to
would.
make sure that's what it is. I'm sure you'd rather come grovel
Well,
at one time.
well, let me say it this way.
Well, the district, I say, not just you, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I did have an idea that we were going to have to come back to you for about 3 more million, and I kind of gave you that projection.
Right, you
Just
did.
looking at forecasting. But for sure, I would have liked to have reduced those costs.
Okay. Now, the other question, and I appreciate that. I have not seen the breakdown, but I'll look at it, and I appreciate you supplying us with that because it does help answer some questions. On the legal, obviously, it showed, I think we went from 170,000, jumping at 950,000. Obviously, we've been paying these legal bills throughout the year.
That's correct.
Why now are we coming up with the request for money moved? Why don't we do that earlier? Why don't we do that throughout the year? Am I missing something on that? Again, I'm trying to understand the workings, the financial workings.
I'll let Mr. McCraney explain that, but primarily, you set aside in your budget basically $150,000 for legal.
Right.
And I think most of us realize that we've had a whole lot of legal costs over this year that, as it relates to the election and things of that nature, things that I couldn't have even anticipated that. So this is one of those things where when we get monies in and we, prepare to pay those monies out, we just have to really bite the bullet because it's required in order to operate. But I'll let Mr. McCraney kind of explain the process and how we got there.
Okay. Thank you.
Like Dr. Shagwar said, originally we budgeted 149, 150 because we had cut the budget actually thinking that legal would go down. And throughout the year, we were hoping that we would be able to save some in Function 41 to be able to transfer that money to cover legal costs, but it's gotten so forward that we're looking at the end of the year, and we're like, we can't scrounge enough pennies together to cover that, so that's why we're bringing it now, because we were hoping we could be able to save and cut back in some other areas that we wouldn't have to hit fund balance to cover these costs.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that the expense is a surprise to anyone who sees what we're paying. It's not like anyone thinks we really stuck at 151,000. My concern and my question, and this will be the last one, is I know that last year we cut it by 500,000, which makes me think it was around 650 the year before, because part of the savings in the budget is we were hoping to save $500,000 in legal costs, and that's what brought it down to 150,000, which probably was not a realistic thing to do, considering we knew the turmoil we were under, but that wasn't your budget. What are we budgeted for this year? Are we looking at more realistic legal budget, or are we budgeting off of the 150 that we blew out of the water for everyone knows the reasons?
Well, again, I don't think anybody, I for sure didn't anticipate the issues related to the election. What was the actual number that we put in? We probably put another 150.
We left everything pretty consistent because, again, we were cutting, and we eliminated positions through attrition, and the charge was not to try to cut any budgets or increase budgets, so we tried to keep budgets flat across, so there isn't a significant increase in legal.
Okay. Well, my only comment, and I don't know if it's too late to go back and look. Obviously, 150,000 is not going to carry us next year. It didn't carry us this year. It didn't carry us last year. We've never been at 150. I just want to make sure, just throwing out when we do the budget, obviously we can't slash it, but if it's an unrealistic expense, 150,000, I just hope that I know we're wrapping up the budget, but it's not going to be 150,000 next year. So I think we need to be realistic when we look at the budget. So I'm just throwing that out. Just a comment.
Very good point.
Yeah, Ms. Z has the floor.
Thank you, President Reese. I want to piggyback on what Mike is talking about when it concerns legal costs. I think that the LBB also pointed out, and I think Gwen said earlier, that we have had a significant increase in attorney fees and legal costs since 2009. Now, some of that is not just elections. Some of it is board members suing board members, looking at superintendent's contracts. So there are a lot of things that I hope that we can get over, and we can have a more realistic budget, but we have to realize that some of that fault falls on this board as a burden. And so we're going to have to try and work together better as a team to prevent some of that legal cost perhaps from coming into the budget. But I just want to make sure that we all take notice of that it's not just the election that caused that increase in fees.
Mr. Tomney has the floor.
Yes, sir. I would, before I comment on action item N, I'd like to also make a comment on the action item A. My concern is, and this is something I think, I don't think, I'm going to ask Devin. In the budget board findings, it stated that we have not been reconciling our bank accounts. And my question is, how in the heck have you been able to produce financial information to us that that we can have any trust and faith in when we're not even balancing our checkbooks?
All of our bank accounts are reconciled. We did discuss that with the LBB, but also what we give, we don't keep much money in our bank accounts. Everything sits in our investment accounts because we aren't making any interest in our bank accounts.
And we don't reconcile our investment accounts?
Yes, sir. They're reconciled daily. As deposits come in and we receive confirmation from the bank, they go into our cash spreadsheet and they're reconciled at that time. And monthly, when you receive that report, that's a reconciled report against our statement from our investment firm.
Well, then why would LBB say that otherwise, that we haven't done it?
They were talking about our payroll bank account, which we keep as a zero balance.
Well, that's not the report that I'm reading. It's on page, it's like just page 155.
what we,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's, but anyway, that's,
Let me go ahead and address.
but if you
that.
like, we can sit down and discuss that, but what we keep, we have 4 accounts: a consolidated, payroll, debt service, and control disbursements, which are all pretty much, well, control disbursements and accounts payable and payroll are all 0 balance accounts. And the staff had not reconciled those, but I've corrected that, and I've informed them that by the 10th of each month, that all bank accounts are to be reconciled, and by the 3rd day of the month, those reports are to be downloaded from the bank so they can start reconciling.
thank you.
Let me jump in here too. The LBB made a lot of recommendations, and so I think in fairness, it is important to point out, of course, how one area is doing. But as I said to you earlier, one of the biggest, the first thing that the LBB has said to us on page 24, it talks about there are things that we're going to have to do basically as board and governance. And so I'm going to be challenging you tonight to help me, help yourself, put in place some procedures that help you as a board that you thought were important, that help you govern. And they're very strong in this, basically about the board. I'm looking at page 12 here, where they basically call us a dysfunctional board, that we lack formal operating structures, and with ineffective communication among its members, that we have created a divisive atmosphere of distrust. As the board, we do not function as a team with common goals and objectives, and we get faced with negative influence from external stakeholders, which compromises the board's ability to effectively govern the district. So what we're doing is I'm helping us. I believe it's important for us to start at the top. You know, Mr. Williams and I, we got the shiny heads. You know, you too, Tom, you got the shiny head. So we're gonna start here. And I'm gonna reaffirm to the public, we're not gonna hide behind things and say that they're hunky-dory. We have challenges. So I'm challenging you tonight to help us put some processes in place for this group, this team of 8 to operate. And I agree, and I guarantee you as best as I can that we're going to put some administrative protocols in place to help make sure or reassure the public that we are doing what we need to do with the taxpayers' dollars. You saw the performance of the students. So despite some of the things that may have been happening, you know, at this level, our team got out there and did their job. But what we're going to do, and Dr. Bonton is being charged with this, to lead us through these 85 recommendations and decide how we're going to prioritize. So your concern is my concern. I definitely want to get to page 116, I think that you read. But also we want to make sure we start, of course, at page 12, and then we work ourselves to the place where we can operate more effectively. And I want to say, despite some of the dysfunctions, your team, we still earned superior under School First. So I want to reassure to our community that your monies were spent well, they were spent wisely. Of course, we can do a better job, and we're going to do that. Again, it's about 100%. It's about a commitment to excellence. And so these points here that were mentioned about communication, I like what you all did tonight. Most of the things that we touched on, I mean, let's have real discussion, but then let's get to the business of taking care of these kids. So I appreciate all this good dialogue.
All right, getting back to action item N, I'd like to move to table this item because we did not receive this revised version until this morning at 9:32. And even though this information has been out for a couple of months, it was still not the final version, and it did not give all trustees time to read and properly digest it as to what all it contains.
Okay, let me address. Let me. I'm sorry, there's a motion.
There's been a motion on the floor to table this item, and second motion by Mr. Tom Neal, second by Mr. Mike Neal. Is there any discussion? Ms. Z has the floor.
Yes, sir. This document is an evergreen document. It's something that we can continue to update and upgrade, but I think the recommendation even from LBB is that we need board operating procedures. Certainly it's not perfect, but certainly it's much better than what we have, which is nothing. So I don't see where tabling it is going to solve all the issues. I think that we can take this as a starting point, improve upon it, have a special meeting where we sit down and talk about our commitments, our beliefs, our core beliefs and commitments and things of that nature, but we don't have to table this because this is certainly what we were just talking about is what we need, board operating procedures. So I think that we should start from here and move forward, but not just keep putting off what we know that we need to start doing, which is the very first section of that LBB. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Okay, and a big part of this is, as I speak with some of the board members, you got to be trained and have training to develop these documents. And because if you don't participate, then you don't have any say of the document. You can just vote up or down. But training is so important, and we have worked, most of us have worked 30 hours or so training that's been paid for by an out entity, not this district. And I've learned a lot that I thought I knew, but I did not know. It tells you, even in this policy here, that we need policy so that we don't have to come and have an argument. This is the policy. This is how it reads. Adhere to it. It talks about board conduct in the public or wherever. I mean, we've had some article today about some U.S. attorney. I mean, that was horrible. But we don't want to get caught up in that. We had our little incident the other day. We don't need to have another incident. We're bigger than that. We really are a great board. Mike and Gwen and everybody else, we bring something special. I've always bragged on Tom about his construction. He's the guru on that. I'm not. No, I deliver mail, so, I can't touch you with that. But I think it's something, as Ms. Zia said, this is not the final document, but we got to start somewhere. And we want to get under the audit. We want to get onto that as fast as we can. And it starts with the board and being trained. So we're going to have to avail ourselves to training. You can't go to college unless you learn. So you can't do a board member justice if you don't get into training. Okay. I'm through on that one. Is there any more discussion? Ms. Ambrose has the floor.
Mr. Reese, I take issue with tabling this item. The draft has been out for some time. The final is not much different. All board members, this was not done by administration. This was done by the board. The board members who took their time, in addition to everything else, and put this board operating procedure together. Everyone had an opportunity to have input and to work on this through our training, but chose not to. But so now that we have the document in place, because maybe they haven't read it or now they don't understand, we should table it. I think that's not fair to the board members who did participate in the training and put the document together to now come back and have those who chose not to participate to have some say in what goes forward. As Ms. Bush said, this is an evergreen document. Hopefully we will be adding, maybe detracting from this document as we go forward. This is a board operating procedure, and this document has been put together by those board members who chose to work on it. And so I cannot be in favor of board members who chose not to participate in the drafting of this document to now have say in whether or not we go forward. So, thank you.
Is there any other, Mr. McNeil has the floor?
Yeah, with all due respect, Ms. Ambrose, I think you misunderstood Tom's point. Tom's point was not the document. Tom's point was the fact that we got the document today. And where you say there's not much change, there is change. We have been screwed to the wall on the CAFR. We've been screwed to the wall on Dr. Shagwell's contract for not paying attention to what we're doing. So Mr. Neal's not asking whether or not he's in favor of it. He's just saying we just got the document today. I've said it before, and I think Tom is saying it again. I think it's a respect of the board members, all the board members, who have to study up and understand what's going on before the meeting. If we don't have the documents, I think it needs to be tabled. And if we don't have the documents in a timely manner, I think it needs to be tabled until we can actually look at it. And I think that's his point. It's not that whether or not we chose to participate or that we don't appreciate the people who did put the thing together. It's the fact that, you know, either get the document to us or don't. And if you don't get the document to us, don't ask us to respond to it or to take action on it. That's Mr. Neal's point.
Okay, and with again, with all due respect to you, Mr. Neal, my point is that if all who were eligible to participate, which was all board members, had been in on the drafting of this document, then there would not be all this concern about we have not read the document. You would have been involved in drafting the document. So I mean that's the point that I'm making. That you know the board members who took the time to draft the document know what's in it, and that all board members had that opportunity and chose not to participate. But now, you know, because now you don't know what's in the document, you want to table it. But that's not our problem. You chose not to know. You chose not to participate, and that's my only point.
Thank you, audience. Y'all should not be participating. Let us do what we do. We'll take a couple of more comments. I think Mr. Williams has said nothing.
No, I was getting ready to say.
Okay, let him. Oh,
Okay.
Mr. Tomley has the floor.
Yeah, I want to respond. Gwen, I've read this document. Believe me, I've read it backwards and forwards, and I've studied it. Okay. But you gonna sit here and tell me that because I didn't get it until 9:35 or 9:32 today, you know, I hadn't had a chance to sit there and go through it detail by detail. There was nothing on there. There were no revision marks to say what the revisions were. So you have to take the document, the rough draft, and what was there. Now, how many have had time to sit there and do that today? And so all I'm asking is that I'm not saying the document's not needed. I'm saying that we are, you know, this board, any of us, out of respect, when something is sent to us, don't send it to me the morning of the board meeting and expect me to come down here and vote for it.
Okay, but my point continues, with all due respect.
Audience. Oh, do y'all not hear me? Hold up. We're going to stop the meeting.
No.
We've asked them not to participate.
Okay.
But y'all seem like y'all want to participate. Please don't disrespect the meeting as you've done in the past. Please don't.
My point,
Ms. Ambrose?
yeah, and with all due respect, Mr. Neal, my point continues to be that the fact you don't know what's in the document is a choice that you made because you could have been a part of the document. You could have chosen to participate in the writing of the document, and therefore you would know what's in it, as other board members do. Now, the fact that you got it this morning, you know, that there's not been that much change, but if you had chosen to participate in the training with the rest of us and writing the document, you would already know because you would have been a part of the writing of the document.
Why, excuse me,
Okay,
why is it that Dr. Shagwell sent me an email said that he and his staff
Mr.
revised
Neal,
it?
you're out of order. We're not going to participate back and forth, back and forth. I'm trying to be reasonable and let
Because
people
Dr.
have their words.
Dr. Shagwell's staff.
Ms. Ambrose,
You can go back and forth.
I think, what did you say? You call for the phone?
I'm sorry. I don't want to be out of line. Am I out of line?
I was just saying that
We're not going to discuss this all night.
Okay,
We're not going
that's-
to
no, I'm
discuss
fine.
an amendment all night long.
I'm fine.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of tabling it? All in favor of tabling this item, raise your right hand. That is 2 for tabling. All opposed, raise your right hand. Motion fails. 4. Now, we'll go back to original motion. Well, that's just one of the items. Do we have another item to be discussed?
I have a discussion item on this, since all we did was discuss the tabling of it. I obviously was not there, chose not to, and continue to choose not to go to the training for my own reasons. How was this document developed? I know it was developed during the CRSS training. I guess I'm going to address you if you don't mind, President Reese.
Sure.
How was the document developed, if you could just fill us in real fast?
Well, what happened, we had approximately 5 different school districts there at our meeting, and we sat with other groups. They tried to mix us up as much as they could, so that you just wouldn't have one group against another. And I think Gwinnett, Georgia, was one of the school districts that we saw some good things that they had. And also Aldine, ISD, which the demographics or geographics has changed since the early 70s, when now it's approximately 85% Hispanic. It was not that in years past. It was Caucasian. So we had San Marcos. We had Spring Branch. So we had diverse districts that we had to go in and share documents and develop plans. And then we had our training here, as Ms. Ambers has said, when we have a trainer that comes out and they already know where to go. We were just trying to develop something to make our school district, which was in the report, dysfunctional, because there were times that it wasn't dysfunctional. There was years ago they met at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's very dysfunctional. So, and we get the good and the bad, and we team with staff here. And like we're going to team with staff again, and I think I invited you up, Tom, the other day, and you said no for your own reasons. And so that you learn and you develop from other school districts that has been there before. Lufkin ISD was a very unique ISD, and they had some things that we bought in. Now, what has been said that whether we got part from this group or that group, that we really have developed policies that are inconsistent with all around the country, especially in the state of Texas. And so these policies and things will help us function a lot better. We won't even have this round discussion once a policy says that Woodrow Reese can't go here or there without supervision at a campus. And I'd have to agree with that. I mean, I just can't walk on there like some people have walked on even Odom campus and made a mockery out of that situation. So board members need to know where they can go. You're welcome anywhere. Mike, you can go anywhere in this building you would like. But there are others
Well, that was proven wrong last month.
No.
No, that's a joke. I'm throwing in a little humor.
You know why it was a joke? You know why it was a joke, Mike? Because you didn't even go in the room. You turned around and left.
I think
you
it was.
let 2 people in there.
I think it was best that I left. Trust me, that was a joke.
Well,
I apologize.
but,
That was
the
out of
audience
hand.
participate. I guess they hadn't seen the film. You didn't even go in there.
That's beside the
So
point.
we
You know
just-
why I didn't go in there? Because I had a run-in with an employee, and I chose to walk away.
We're gonna discuss this
No,
in
I'm going to tell
executive
you because you brought
Tell
this
me.
up.
Tell me.
I walked away so that the situation didn't escalate. So you can say any crap you want about me not going in the room, but all it would have done is continue the escalation. Oh, I'll show you the film anytime you want, Woodrow.
Yeah? What's your point? What's your point? Huh? What's your point?
My point is, if you want to start the conversation, then I'm going to have something to say about it.
Well, I've already looked into. You're probably going to get reprimanded later on.
You know what?
Exactly.
Call my boss and put it in my personnel file where I make my money,
You shouldn't have did
and
that.
I'll care then.
Okay. All right. Now, you asked me why did we get there? That's where we got it in training.
Okay, let me ask you the question, okay? Is there's a concern, and I'm going to say it was my concern, so that we don't get brought back into the situation. Was a situation where a quorum got together and did work outside that would have violated the Open Meetings Act, or was it stuff that was done including with the staff to where we're not going to get hit with an Open Meetings Act violation? That's what I'm wanting to know.
Okay, let me address that. With the trainings, each board member, 2 of you were assigned to a staff member to assist you. This is done above board with qualified people. I've shared with you, led by trainers such as Mike Moses. You know, the people who've been doing this for a long time. Again, I'm going to remind you, our job, and I like all these shiny ball heads, we have to operate from the top. We have to put some things in place. You've made the commitment to do that. You invested the hours, and here's an opportunity. Let's take the high road and do those things that we need to do to make sure we move forward, and then I will then roll that down to administrative regulations. But
okay,
no, sir.
And I appreciate that. When you say that it was done above board,
that's correct.
I want the people to know that.
That's
why I'm asking, so
Thank
it doesn't
you.
come back with questions legally and trying to challenge what we're doing, okay? I have a couple of problems on this. I'm not going to address it tonight. I have a feeling I'm going to be outvoted. My problem is there's a couple of things in this that I think are in direct conflict with policy. And I think the main concern I have is, are we in conflict of policy in some of these things? I see where it is. But as long as it's a working document, I don't have a problem with that, because it's something that we continue to work on.
That's right. Let me direct your attention to the first page in the revised version that you have puts that statement out there that basically there are changes that are reflected in the draft that basically will not take effect until you as a board decide you're going to adopt that policy. And let me clear up, there are 2 words we're using probably interchangeably, and we probably shouldn't. These are procedures, not policies. So you're not adopting policies tonight. You're adopting, and the idea is that we do it publicly, transparently. You're adopting or deciding you're going to use these procedures. Where your policy conflicts with the procedure, we have a big bold statement that says they won't be in effect until such time as you've had your policy readings and your first reading and your second readings. But this begins, you know, I said earlier, how do we eat the elephant? You got to do it one bite at a time. And so I do want to thank you and encourage you to keep participating, because we are setting the example to the community about how do we get through tough and challenging situations. And I see, Ms. Bush, I know you had your hand up. I don't know if you want to, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Reeves.
No, I ain't going to box with Mike. You're all right.
In the interest of time, I'll just hold my comments. I did want to throw in, though, that Janice Broussard had also worked a lot on this in a previous, several years ago, I think with Mr. Nance. And so some of this input also came from information that she brought back. So it was a lot of input gathered together from that meeting, as well as all of that, and given to our illustrious superintendent and assistant to put it all together in one draft for us to look at and review. But I do want to encourage everyone to read it, and where there are some questions or concerns, to bring those back and let's look at those. But certainly I'm appreciative of the fact and encourage us to at least adopt a set of operating procedures.
Okay, it's been motioned, second, and discussed lengthily. And we're going to call for the vote at this time. You raise your right hand if you're in favor of this.
We got more
we
items.
got the
I'm
rest
sorry.
of them. Okay.
There's, see, we grouped them all together. This is
You might
N
cross
and
me up
staff
on
P,
that.
Z, A, A, and BB.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the rest of the items? Mr. Tom Neal has the floor.
Yes, sir. And this will deal with action item Z, A, B, B, which is calling for the election order and the resolution for the joint election with Jefferson County for November the 5th election, and consider, and if appropriate, take action to approve agreement with Jefferson County regarding BISD trustee election. My question is, how can the BISD call for an election when you look at the education code and the election code, and it clearly states that we're not eligible to have a board election in November. The city and schools normally have their elections in May of the odd years, and the county and the state have their election in the even years. And the general and it says the general election for state and county officers. So my question is, we don't fall into any of those parameters. And in fact, I see that we have Tom Rugg here tonight, and I'd like to ask him outright: Will BISD be able to call an election and have the county approve it?
Mr. Rugg is not on the agenda. Carry forward.
Wait a minute.
He's not on the agenda to speak.
Wait a minute.
I think I can answer the questions I did talk to Mr. Rugg prior to the meeting, if you want to know what that discussion was. Mr. Neal.
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to know.
Mr. President, may I proceed?
Madam Attorney.
Okay.
Floor.
As you're aware, our May election was enjoined. And if you've looked at any of the briefing that we provided to you with the Ninth Court of Appeals, you're aware that there is not a provision for the district on its own to call for an election. But you are certainly aware that the district has been sued in many suits, and in particular in Judge Clark's court, there was a allegation or assertion that this board did not want to hold an election at all. In May of this year, the D.C. court approved of our resolution, which said that we were going to move forward to a November election. There is no case law that tells us what to do in this instance. We were stopped from having an election the next available date, regardless of whether it's in the election code or not. When you look at cases of this type, elections are held on the next available date. So that's what we're moving forward to under the advisement of the Election Council. We have received from the county over the past several weeks, we received the agreement from the county. We did not ask for the agreement. We have never received agreements when we did not have an upcoming election. It is certainly known to the county that BISD was moving forward to trying to do a November 5th election based on the approval order by the D.C. Court of May 10th. Mr. Rugg did inform me shortly before the meeting started that he was here to speak at communications to the board, that he is not sure, or maybe he will say he will not, approve an agreement with the school district and the county to hold this election. But when you look at the agreement that's on file that was sent to the district by the county clerk, not by Mr. Rugg, but by the county clerk, it clearly states that it relieves the county of any liability for anything in this election. So it is still our responsibility to call for the election. It's our responsibility to make sure that we have a valid election, that we call for it. So I believe that the agreement covers this instance for the county, but that's really up to the county to decide whether they're going to fulfill this agreement that they've sent to us if you approve it tonight. That's up to them. And if they don't, then we're going to have to come back and decide what do we do at that point. But for the board, it's important that you are not in a position that you are attempting to hold over, for trustees who are up for election, and that would be 3 of you, that you are not attempting to hold over, because under the code, the next election that we can have is November of next year. So that is our recommendation to you. There is, the education code provides certain days that we can call an election. It has been our hope that the D.C. court will come and give an affirmative, you guys do it on this date. We have not gotten that. So it's really up to this board. We have made the election order there for you to decide in what path you go forward. It is, with great possibility, I anticipated that maybe tonight we would have a TRO preventing us from doing that. And so be it. But my recommendation, Mr. Dunn's recommendation, Mr. Brazel's recommendation to you is that you make an effort to go forward. If we're stopped, if we're prevented from doing it, you have still made an effort, and you're not in a position where you are trying to hold over a whole nother year and a half in offices that have expired.
Just out of curiosity, what are the possibilities of other options if the county says no, we're not going to furnish you the voting machines and so forth and so what are the other options?
I think we'll have to talk about it then, but another option is that the district holds its elections by themselves, and I think that creates even a bigger problem, because certainly under the election code you're not to do that. But I've not gotten any indication. We've been working on this with the county. We've been working with the county clerk. She sent us this agreement maybe a month ago. I talked to her, I think, Monday on polling places. I've talked to Shane Howard's office as late as Tuesday. Today, minutes before this meeting, was the first I've ever heard from any county official that they were not going to, or there's a possibility that they would not, I guess, adhere to this contract that they sent us, not that we asked for or sent them.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Hearing or seeing none, you will vote by the raise of your right hand. All in favor of these motions? Do I need to read them again?
No, I think I still remember them.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. That'd be 4 votes. All opposed? That'd be 2 votes. Motion passed. Approximately 5 minutes after conclusion of the public open meeting referred to above, an executive board closed meeting will be held to discuss the following matters. Consultation with the school district attorney is permitted by section 551.071 1A and B, Texas Government Code 2, regarding pending contemplated litigation or settlement offer, or on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the government body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter. To be in the executive session, discussion of routine pending litigation matters, Neal and Neald versus BISD. In reference to Neal 09-13-00144 CV consolidated with Rodriguez et al. Relators 09-13-00115-CV, Ninth Court of Appeals, number 4, 1-13-CV 401 BISD versus Holder et al. Intervenors, Neal all, number 5, 1-13-CV 304 Rodriguez versus BISD, number 6, B 194-588 Wagner versus BISD, number 7, discussion of personnel investigation regarding August 1st incident of 2013. All right, we have B, consideration of personnel matters of sort described in section 551.074A 1 and 2 of the section 551.082 of the Texas Government Code regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of an employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or an employee. Executive session. Now we have under B, B1, consider and if appropriate take action to approve recommendations of employment and appointment of personnel. A, retirements. B, resignations. C, new employee contract recommendations. D, administrative contract recommendations. Under D, we have 1, Principal, Martin Luther King School. Number 2, Assistant Principal, Central Medical Magnet High School. Number 3, Assistant Principal, Clifton J. Ozan High School. Number 4, Assistant Principal, Paul A. Brown Learning Center. Number 5, Math Supervisor, Curriculum and Administration Building. Number 6, Title I Curriculum Coordinator, South Park Middle School. E, non-renewal of professional employee. F, hear a complaint or charge against an officer or an employee. Final action, decision, or vote, if any, with regard to the item listed to the board shall be made in public open meeting duly announced by notice, as the Board of Education shall determine. We're in recess.
choose to pass this slate, Mr. Bro, of course, is currently assistant principal at Vincent Middle School. I will be recommending, or not recommending tonight, I will appoint as assistant principal in an interim capacity at Vincent Middle School, Mr. Michael Smith. Mr. Smith, do you have any family here with you tonight? Please stand up. All right. Also, finally, in this slate, we finally have a lady for the position of Title I Curriculum Coordinator at South Park Middle School. I'm recommending Ms. Petula Whitfield. Ms. Whitfield, do you have any family here tonight?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Please stand, family.
I have all my children. Everybody that I've loved along this journey, so they're all here.
What Ms. Bush said, that's the way a lady does it. So, Mr. President, board members, these are my recommendations at this time, except for, of course, Mr. Smith, but I'm appointing him as interim. These are my recommendations for assistant principals and for Title I Curriculum Coordinator.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Bush, second by Mr. Williams, accept the recommendations coming from our superintendent of schools, Dr. Shagwar. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing or seeing none, raise your right hand if you approve. That be unanimous. No opposers. Motion passed.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, I'd like for you to stay there. We still have two more at this point. I named on last month in interim positions for the position of math supervisor, Ms. Cherie Will. If you would, Ms. Will. You have any family here with you tonight? Okay, great. Come on up, Ms. Will. And for the position of principal at King Middle School, Mr. Jackie Cotton. So, Mr. President, those are my two recommendations for principal and for math supervisor.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Z, second by Mr. Williams, accept the recommendations from our superintendent of schools, Dr. Shagwar. Is there any discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. That be unanimous. There's no opposers. Congratulations.
Okay, it's tradition by the board, Mr. Reese, that we go down and greet these new faces, new appointments to our district. As you all heard from the leadership earlier, there's a lot of work to be done, so they're ready to get started.
Man, Ray Senior Cotton is my basketball coach in high school. Really? Really? At the end of the season, I started all year, and he said, he was going through stats. He said, Mike, we need 12 points, 35 fouls. Son, you are a liability to my basketball team. Coach, you started me too.
12 points, 35 fouls, huh?
Yeah.
Come on, y'all. It ain't simple, Dan. Come on, do that.
What's that?
I'm telling them, come on. Oh, Lord have mercy. Almost gooped.
Wasn't just closing.
No.
They wouldn't have remembered.
No. Oh, yeah, then our totals don't leave.
What's that?
They already told us don't
Don't
leave.
leave.
I think it's up.
I wish. We can just hope that they don't.
Okay, you all are welcome to stay or take your seats. We're going to continue with the meeting.
As they continue to leave, our board policy, BED local, states that the following concerning disruption of a meeting with regards to public participation. The board shall not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience. If at least one warning from the presiding officer, any person continues to disrupt the meeting by his or her words or action, the presiding officer may request assistance from law enforcement officials to have the person removed from the meeting. It is not our intent to remove anyone from the room this evening. However, we would adhere to the policy. We're asking for everyone to please be respectful of others and to refrain from applauding, cheering, booing, or other types of outbursts before, during, or after the speaker to ensure that everyone who has signed up to speak has an opportunity to be heard. The same board policy it states that there will be 45 minutes limit for public communications. If you continue with your applauding and stopping the speakers, we'll run the clock, Mr. Brooks, as it is, 45 minutes of time, not stopping in between everyone, because that's not the way it's going to be. So, Ms. Georgia, communications?
We currently have 7 signed up for 3.5 minutes. Miss Virginia Battles.
Ms. Battles?
Good evening. My name is Virginia Battles. I am with Greer DV Consulting Firm. We specialize in domestic violence. However, we have other programs that's implemented.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Your name and address, please.
Virginia Battles, 2850 Gulf,
Okay,
Beaumont, Texas.
thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm with Greer DV Consulting Firm, where we specialize in domestic violence. We have other programs that's implemented for adolescents and adults. The adolescent program is a quit digging program. That's to help them discover the real you and to figure out alternative ways to keep things straight in their lives. However, as a survivor of domestic violence, every opportunity I have to speak against domestic violence, I do so. As a survivor of 246 stitches in my head, lying in a coma for 3 months, flatlining 3 times, I stand this evening to educate anyone on domestic violence. Do you have a right to touch someone? No, you do not. Do you have a right to push anyone? No, you do not. Regardless of your job, regardless of your race, it does not matter. Domestic violence, abuse is abuse. I stand this evening, and I stand in representation of Jesse Haynes. I stand in representation of every American.
Ma'am, no calling of staff names.
Amen. I stand in reference to every woman and every child that has been abused, not only in America, but all over this nation. We see often in the news where women, where children, and even men are being abused. It's not only women and children, it's men that's being abused as well. I am asking and trying to implement into the district to be able to teach the children against domestic violence, to be able to help the young people that are in school that believe that when the little boys beat them up, that beat the girls up, that they love them. That's the way that they show. No, it's not. That's not the way you show love. The way you show love is you have open communication. You have understanding. But the right to touch someone, no one in this world has a right to do that. I have seen many people, I work with many clients that are dealing with domestic violence. It's not only physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's verbal, it's financial, it's spiritual as well. But I stand tonight to say no against domestic violence. I stand tonight and I ask the world to stand along with me, that we stand up on one accord with one another and make a difference in this world to give women, to give men, and to give children guidance for a better life against domestic violence. I thank you all for this opportunity tonight, and I hope that there is something that I have said to help any of you understand. When you want to use your hands, use them in the proper way, but don't use them to touch a woman. Thank you.
Jason?
Ricky Jason, 5440 Threadneedle. First of all, I'd like to say the board is doing a great job, and I'd like to say that some of the people on the board that really disturbs me, and I'm going to pray for you because you need God in your life, because I see right now that you can change. You was raised up that way, but in your eyes, sometimes it blinds me, but I got God because I can feel it. You always want to make decisions about what's being paid. Is it that bill? Is it this bill? And you never want to listen to anybody. All you want to do is just sit up there and just keep judging people. We all bleed the same blood. It's some good white people and it's some bad white people. But I say to you, you're the bad white people. And then you also follow behind your clan leader with blue eyes. So I say to you, change your ways, change your heart, open up to God, and stop trying to steal, because right now y'all trying to steal these seats from these people on this board. We're not stupid. We know what y'all trying to do. The people that lost, the only people voted for them was their mom and their sister and their brother. So therefore I say to you, about your luncheon, I'll have lunch with you if you sit and watch Roots with me and you watch Bird, The Life and Tragic Death of James Byrd Jr. You think you can do that? And one more thing, I would like for you to apologize for pushing the sister, because that was wrong. You could have broken her leg or broken her back. And one more other thing I want to say to you, that it was wrong what you did, and we are not going to forget that. You should be suspended off the board, not just her, because you pushed her and you were in the wrong. And only your people here is with you. Your few people that you couldn't get the decent people to come out with you, because nobody don't want to stand with you all, because you got a lot of bitter and hate, and you still wearing them hoods and horns, but you're wearing them in a different design. So what I can say to you, deep in my heart, I'm going to pray for you. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast for you. I'm going to fast for you. I'm speaking, not you. I'm speaking, not you. I'm going to do a fast.
Hold on. I don't need the board to come in. It's bad enough. Well, he didn't call a name. Okay. Let it, okay. We're going to continue. We got some more speakers. We can cut it off right now. Because the audience is out there laughing and all that too. I'm asking y'all to be, y'all think, officer, will y'all take some positions in the middle of these aisles?
Thank you.
No, continue.
And all I can do is hold my head up high, get on my knees tonight, and pray for you. Like I said, I'm doing a 24-hour fast for you guys and a prayer vision. And I'm going to come back in 2 weeks and let you know if God is going to accept you in their house. Because look at that wall up there. It's beautiful, ain't it? Dr. Thomas did some beautiful things for us, and Dr. Shagwar did some great things. So thank God, and I pray for y'all again.
Time.
God bless you. Thank you.
Jock Wagner.
Jock Wagner, 6745 Linkwood. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to top that, but here we go. At the last board meeting, a concerned citizen approached the board and notified them that the next speaker approaching the podium did not reside in the district's boundaries. He then recommended having the speaker show their ID or their driver's license. The board decided not to ask the speaker for any form of identification. Fast forward to earlier this week. I went to the administration building to pick up some records that I had requested. Upon arrival, I had to give my driver's license to the receptionist, who scanned it, a digital image, saved it, and printed me a badge to walk down the hallway to pick up some forms. I don't understand this, and I don't understand why this is, especially seeing that based off the LVB's report, you have employees that lack identification in their own personal employee files. So Jennifer Johnson at the Examiner evidently obtained a copy of the LBB report, and I've highlighted some things here that I wanted to read out loud, and I'm going to use the duration of my time to do that. So these are excerpts from the report. As of February 2013, Beaumont ISD has not reconciled its bank account since November 2012, and the district has provided no evidence that its investment accounts have ever been reconciled. BISD claims to possess more than $576 million in assets. 86% of the holdings produced in acquisitions valued at more than $100,000 each. However, the LBB review could not confirm BISD's claims. Of the 20 items tested in the physical existence test, 12 could not be located. LBB auditors reported. This represents an error rate of 60%. Where are the assets? If these are things that are all worth more than $100,000 each, and we can't account or find 60% of them, that's a concern. Small items were hard to keep on track of also. The review noted that $94,395 deficiency in BISD foam cup inventory. Additionally, I don't understand why we'd have that many foam cups on hand anyway. Almost a $500,000 deficiency in C-cell battery inventory, and 5 out of 6 inventory counts coming up short. Where are things going? Why is that not a concern of your finance department or your purchasing someone? According to the auditor's findings, BISD has been paying more than $50,000 annually to one law firm without ever properly bidding the service as per law to properly attain lower cost per hour for similar or better quality legal services. After the LBB performed its review, BISD has since paid an additional $1 million for legal fees. Tonight, it was put before the board to approve $950,000. And so I broke that down at a rate of $400 an hour, which is the equivalency of roughly 2,400 hours. You're paying someone for 100 days around the clock to work.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
Stephen Watson.
Stephen Watson, 6015 Townhouse. Mr. President and Mr. Superintendent and trustees, in an effort to help resolve this conflict among us, I'm searching my heart. I stand before you tonight to say that if my prior comments to this board have come across as hateful, as arrogant, as disrespectful, I'm offering my sincere apology. I make no excuses and no justifications for doing that. Your positions do indeed deserve common courtesy and respect. As our leaders and our representatives, if you have willfully or if you have unknowingly allowed cheating to take place or allowed the attendance rolls to be padded, if you've willfully or if you have unknowingly allowed the advancement and promotion of those who aren't fully qualified at the expense of those who are qualified, if you participated in or if you have allowed the misappropriation of funds or mismanagement of this district business, then you have insulted and disrespected the students of this district, their families, the hardworking employees of BISD, the taxpayers of the city, and God help them, those who are too poor to pay taxes. If you individually or as a group have participated or unknowingly allowed any of those things to happen, then you should issue your sincere personal apology and resign. Thank you.
Nicholas Hunter.
Nicholas Hunter, 9155 Mapes, Beaumont, Texas. Prior to this year, the last time I was in this very room, I was being honored by this board and by this school district for test results or exemplary. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was 9 students, 3 from each high school. And as an alumnus of BISD, to see what is happening currently, it sickens me and it saddens me, because I know that the state of our district, the strength of our community, the strength of the businesses in this community is directly related to how well the school board functions. Now, I've worn many hats as a 28-year-old young man. I had owned my own business, I have worked for people, and now as a father, I know that I can no longer sit back and allow the things that I see dividing our community and making it an unpleasant place to want to raise a child to continue. When I had my own business, and when I would try to hire a student from BISD that was a recent graduate, the basic communication skills weren't there. The basic people skills, the basic education that I thought everyone would get with a passing grade, a graduation, just weren't there. And those are things that absolutely need to be worked on. The division that we have in this community is unbelievable, and it's driving families, it's driving businesses, it's driving contributing members of this society away. I personally know of families that have moved to higher lower income places with higher living expenses to get away from BISD. I know of businesses that have chosen to go to smaller towns like Mid-County or Lumberton to get away from BISD. And at this point, there are things that can be done to fix it. We definitely need to work towards fixing those things. And to be honest with you, the division, because you each have your community behind you. The problem is you don't have the community behind you. And that's what needs to be fixed. And it's not a matter of black and white, because nothing in this world is black and white. But the fact is that when you vote and you proceed and you guide with just those guidelines, everyone loses. I don't want Beaumont, with all due respect, to turn into Port Arthur. This is my home, and this is where I want to raise my son and my future kids. But if things don't change, I might be one of those families that takes my income and my wealth and my knowledge and go and contribute somewhere else. Thank you.
Michael Getz.
All right. Officers, thank y'all. You can post your stations that you had before. I think we can kind of on the same page. Mr. Moore, Officer Moore, y'all can take your other position if you like.
Michael Goetz, 7950 Phelan. The last speaker was so eloquent, and it just shows you that our young people recognize the problems that's going on in the school district. Last week, we had our county judge make comments that reflect the seriousness of industry leaving this county, taking their jobs, taking their money and wealth with them because of the Beaumont Independent School District. You know, I listened intently and heard that 22 out of 25 of BISD schools met the state's minimum standards. That's the minimum standards. I only saw 2 that scored 80% or above. I'm glad that we had at least 22 out of 25 pass the minimum standards, but it's not really anything to be patting ourselves on the back about now, is it? If you're just barely getting by with the minimum standards. And what I want to know is whether or not in the past year or so have our educational standards slipped in BISD, or have we improved? And I say that because 2 years ago, certain board members and administrators were patting themselves on the back for being one of the top 10 school districts in the United States. Heck, the banner's still hanging on the wall back there. So do you really believe that you're one of the top 10 school districts in the United States when you only have 22 out of the 25 schools passing the minimum standards and you have 3 that need improvement? Really? Do you believe you're one of the top 10 school districts in the nation when you have a TEA investigation going on? And y'all gave quite a performance tonight in front of the lead investigator of the TEA, who was here in the audience tonight. So I'm sure she has a lot to think about tonight. And then you have the LBB, which, you know, I had to put on asbestos gloves to handle that document. Yeah, that was a scathing report. And you kind of gloss over it like it's just not that big a deal. It is a big deal. It's hurting this district. It's hurting this community. You've got to do better. Lastly, on this election issue, you know, I heard the spin that your attorney gave you. Y'all requested a contract, a blank contract, not signed by the county, a blank contract, to be able to have the county administer an election this fall. You had the county district attorney's representative in the audience tonight, and he has told you that he is going to tell the county clerk that you can't have, she can't sign that contract. She's not going to administer an election this fall. And the reason why is because it would be an illegal election. At this point, y'all have done so much damage that the only way you're going to be able to have an election is to have a court order it. Or, more preferably, the TEA will come in and take this board over.
Sue Ellen Inner. Sue Ellen Inner.
Good evening. How are you all tonight? My name is Sue Ellen Inner. I reside at 1520 Central Drive, and I speak tonight on behalf of the Association of Texas Professional Educators. I'm our local president. I'm going to read, so be prepared. We believe that this school district and that this board should make a statement showing your support for the backbone of this school district, the staff by dedicating a revenue stream that will be deposited outside of the general funds to be used only for staff salary and benefits. We understand that the financial constraints that both BISD and the state have faced in recent years still stand. However, we strongly believe that these constraints, if not properly addressed, will diminish the ability of BISD to attract and retain the quality, dedicated staff that we need to accomplish our goals. This school board has the ability to make a bold statement that we are determined not only to provide competitive but superior salary and benefits packages that will ensure that we attract the best possible staff in all of Southeast Texas. We suggest looking at specific revenue systems such as funding collected by the district through oil and gas royalty. Through oil and gas royalties. These funds could be deposited in a newly created account outside of the general fund to be used only for staff compensation. Clearly, there are many proposals that could be created to accomplish this same goal, and we are eager to discuss these. One would be west of Houston, Sheldon ISD recently voted for a tax ratification, moving a few cents from the building and maintenance fund to the salary and benefits fund, and this vote resulted in no health care increase for the employee-only policies, and also a small salary increase. Ultimately, the goal is to provide the students of BISD with the best opportunities possible by offering them the best instruction and support that we can provide. This proposal is one that we feel strongly about, and we look forward to working with the board toward that end. Thank you.
Pam Shalander for 1.5 minutes.
Pam Shalander, 5555 Clinton. I was going to speak about an item on the agenda, but since somebody decided to move communications to the end, I have to wing it. So I decided I would thank the board, especially our fearless leader, for, as what Mike said, putting on quite a show for the investigator at TEA, and I sincerely hope this will speed their trip down here to make sure this school district is run the way it's supposed to be run. It's past time for that to happen. Thank you.
Joey Hilliard.
Good evening. Joey Hilliard, 1180 Stacewood Drive, Beaumont, Texas. Dr. Shagwell, I'm a member of the Booster Club for the football team at Westbrook. I'm a member of the PTA. I've helped and volunteered not only my time but also my company's money to support all children in all schools that we have attended. I will tell you now that the roof leaks, as Tom said. We have doors that won't close. We have a lot of things that are wrong with the bond issue at Westbrook High School. I know that as a president of a company, that when I spend that kind of money, that I make sure the job's done correctly. I put it before each one of you that you take the time to walk through these 54 projects and see that the money that was entrusted to you by us was spent wisely and correctly. Thank you.
Michelle Nelson.
Michelle Nelson, 13570 Chimney Rock. I want to thank a couple of board members who took a minute to speak with me earlier tonight. I appreciate your time. I've had an opportunity, I've scanned through the LBB report briefly. I've looked at a few things. There's positive things that the district has put in place, which are great news. That's always good to hear positive things from the LBB. There were some less positive things that need to be corrected, but in a large report like that, you're going to expect a little bit of both. It's not unexpected. We've entrusted millions of taxpayer dollars, and it's not a responsibility that anybody can take lightly up on this board, including our superintendent. That's a lot of money. I pray that you'll look closely at what they have given you and take that information and take those recommendations to heart and move forward with making some of those changes in a positive manner. Board did not escape criticism either. Hostility, lack of communication, lack of transparency. Look inside each of you to see where you hold fault with that, because nobody's blameless when these things are occurring. Everybody has taken a part in it. 2 words of the day: negotiation and compromise. You have to negotiate amongst the board. You have to talk about things. You have to talk about the pros and the cons. You have to really listen and hear each other on what the differences in opinions are. Compromise means not everybody's going to get what they want. You're going to have to give up something sometimes. Everybody has to give up something, but you have to find that middle ground. And I challenge all of you to work together on that and come to some decisions that result in a 7-0 vote that everybody can agree on. Thank you for your time.
Tom Rugg. Tom Rugg. Jerry Ayers. David Pete.
Good evening. David Pete, 4390 Corley here in Beaumont, Texas. I would say to the board tonight, you guys have done an outstanding job in presenting what you presented tonight. I appreciate the efforts you put forth. But what concerns me is that we're looking at this here from another perspective. We're looking at it from the perspective that what's been taking place now, everybody is all in their feelings and emotions. But the actual fact is that when you're dealing with the board and dealing with what's going on, we have to stay focused on what's important. That's the kids. And the kids are the main focus of everything that's going on. But I do have a concern about incidents that have taken place during the board meetings at this time. And I really feel strongly that there's not one person here that should be here, and she's not here. And two people were involved in an incident. And I feel as though it's unfair that one is here, and one is not. And the board should really think strongly about adopting those guidelines, which would give you some reservations in what you need to do and how things need to be done. So you don't go walk into schools and places and thinking that you can run it and do what you want to do. So I would say to the board, you all have done an outstanding job. Thank you for the reports. Thank you for the things you do, and we continue to support you. And I stand resolved with this board 100% and what your efforts are. And despite what these other folks have said and what they're saying right now, you guys do an outstanding job. The LBB, they're doing their job, and I hope they're still here, but I hope they listen to what's been said here tonight. Thank you.
Joe Sasser. Joe Sasser. Okay.
Give me a second. Get this over. There we go. It's not cooperating. Okay. Joe Sasser, 3305 Redwood, here in Beaumont. The LBB report describes the way a lot of us feel concerning BISD and express it in a clear and concise manner. I'll give you 3 quotes. Quote, "The blacks on the board are only committed to literally beating the white community over the head with their authority and making sure they steer all the benefits, i.e. supervisory positions, construction contracts, to other blacks." End quote. But let's not forget federally indicted tax cheating overbilling electrical contractors. Second quote, "The district is extremely racist and bigoted in its organization, and if you are not a minority, you are not considered for employment in any management type position." Unquote. Let's take that one step further. This seems to include hiring convicted felons, those not qualified, and those with drug and prostitution convictions to work with our children. Last quote. "This board has been the worst thing to happen to Beaumont. It is a totally black versus white issue. The blacks want to do what the blacks want to do and do not make decisions based on what is best for the district or the students. We feel if we replaced them with 4 new ones, it would not change." End quote. Things like this happen when you have a disgruntled postal worker acting out his Stalinist dictatorial fantasies surrounded by a majority of like-minded yes men and women.
Virginia Sasser.
Good evening. Virginia Sasser, 3305 Redwood Drive in Beaumont. Referring to BISD demographics of the latest LBB report, I am part of the 2.2 to 3% Pacific Islanders and Asians living in Beaumont, making me a super minority. I'm here to address 4 matters. First, I strongly encourage the person who called a city councilman a red-eyed devil to go back to school and learn good manners. He seems to enjoy being rude and insulting to persons not colored like himself and accepting of illegal actions taken by people simply because they are. Second, the BISD spokeswoman repeatedly breaks rules of proper conduct and has become an embarrassment not only to BISD, whether the black majority chooses to accept that or not, but entire city of Beaumont. From her ridiculous antics and continuous lying to Hardin County about her income to have her Jefferson County property repaired at taxpayer expense to maliciously accusing others of something they did not do. Third, majority board and other staff members, please quit using the Attorney General when you disagree with Supreme Court rulings. He cannot supersede the Supreme Court. No one can, not even the President. So please stop using the color of your skin to get what you want. Think of the students and others regardless
Ma'am,
of
your
skin
time's up.
color,
Thank you very much.
and not only
Your
of what's in
time
your
is
pocket.
up. Now, the next one can't hear that their time is up. I'm going to have them escorted out of here. That's it. Is there any other meeting, any other business before this board? Hearing none, adjourn.